From beyond the farthest reaches of our galaxy they come. Two brains pulsing with a strange energy. These space brains come to share their love of science fiction movies.
Hi, welcome to Space Brains, the show where we joy-watch sci-fi movies and then talk about what was good and what was great. I'm Surrey, and this is Mark.
Hiya, tonight we're talking about Doomsday. It came out in 2008, and it's written and directed by the one and only Neil Marshall. Now, he's a director that's helmed Dog Soldiers, The Descent, and a few other titles, including the recent Hellboy, the one that came out in 2019. So he's well and truly can handle directing a film.
Yes.
Sorry?
He certainly can.
He certainly
but
can.
You better turn back now, because we're going to do spoilers. And if you haven't seen this movie, go watch it and then tune back in and listen to what we have to say and see if you agree.
What's Doomsday about, Surrey, you ask?
What's Doomsday about?
COVID-19. No, it's not about COVID-19. But it's a similar premise. It happens. This story starts. If I can talk properly tonight, I don't know what's going on. This story is all about a pandemic across the UK. It's called the Reaper virus.
Reaper,
which is a great name for a virus.
Surprisingly, not likely to be named a Reaper virus.
Can you imagine if COVID-19 was called the Reaper virus and what that would do? But maybe it would stop people. People would actually socially isolate.
Murder virus.
The murder virus. The demon virus is coming to get you. Anyway, the Reaper virus spreads across Scotland, killing millions. And the British government do something very unlike COVID, which is also interesting, which we'll get into tonight. They decide to lock everyone behind a big military wall. But when the virus then reappears 30 years later in London, they must send a military team back into Scotland, back behind that wall, to locate any survivors to try to find a cure before it's then too late for London.
London
and the rest of the world,
UK,
I suppose. Yeah.
Something like that.
Something like that. I did think it was really interesting that this film... We chose this film. I had no idea what it was, as we always do.
No, as usual, it's called Doomsday. It says an apocalyptic event. And like, okay.
Yep. It was Surrey's choice. He picked it. Great. I go in cold. I start watching it, and it was straight away really interesting because it's a pandemic kind of film, and it's just interesting because of course we're in this pandemic, and so it's interesting to see sort of what how the government sort of dealt with it, and what they decided to do. And there was some similarities and there was some then real extreme differences. So I think we'll get into that. And what was your number one takeaway from Doomsday?
My Doomsday number one takeaway was that even in the apocalypse, there's time for self-referential humour.
Okay.
Yes. The reference to, he does the... in Scotland, in Glasgow, there's a little stage show, song and dance routine to...
Awesome scene.
Good Thing by the Fine Young Cannibals as they go to roast and eat someone.
Yes.
That takes a certain kind of ironic self-awareness in order to be able to make that bit of humour there, which I do not doubt is what that guy's intention was.
Definitely.
Aren't we funny? We're killing and eating people. And of course, Good Thing is this sort of upbeat, happy type of song, which is also in contrast. Well, I do like that. I was going to talk about also in the apocalypse, people find time to design new fashions.
They do, don't they? They're quite often in these apocalyptic films got a real eye for fashion.
And hairdressing.
Yeah.
The hairdressers and the fashion, because you're thinking these guys are real badass with their chains and tats and God knows what else. But they've got a lot of effort into their makeup and their hair and their outfits.
Yes.
Which means all of the, the makeup artists, the hairdressers and stylists, they're going to fucking rule the apocalypse. It's just totally going to,
Well, I can't
kick
go
goals.
eating people's Surrey unless I'm like looking really good.
You got to look like someone who eats someone.
Yeah, yeah. And then also like if it's time to like go to war, we got to get dressed up and do my hair properly.
Yeah, I know. That's always the thing that struck me. I went to a couple alternate bars in Melbourne, and I said, there's this guy. He's got a pink mohawk. He's looking like a classic late 70s, early 80s British punk. And he's even got a nose, safety pin, and his jacket is a little bit. His denim jacket is a bit torn. It's got these patches on it and stuff. And I went and spoke to him because you have to, because he was really displaying his allegiance, if you will. Mm-hmm. It turns out it takes him about an hour and a half or so to get ready to come out because that hair doesn't just stick. Like, it wasn't a short mohawk.
No,
it was like a big, full-on proper one.
Yeah.
And it doesn't get that shade of pink without spending about $80 at the hairdresser. Not more than that because he only has a small amount of hair. But and so he's still looking, going, doesn't sound so frightening when someone takes that much time to get their look just right in order to appear frightening.
Yeah,
you still think that's not a person who's really frightening.
No.
The really frightening people, because you look at your serial killers, they don't put much effort in at all.
No,
you don't see them like in movies. Yeah, they look scary and creepy, and they're all like done up. But in reality, the serial killers are the ones who are just wearing like the really drab clothing and they're really ordinary looking.
You can understand like what was his name? I've just blanked his name. The leader,
Saul.
Saul. Yeah.
Saul.
You could understand him being showy because it's kind of the leader always needs to be showy, right?
Oh,
even our current, politicians and even military leaders, there's a particular look to them. They have to be polished and ready to show, And in this sort of extreme environment, you can invite, but the grunt soldier having a crazy mohawk.
Well,
does he have time to do that? Like, at any moment he could be like, told to like wheel someone out and eat them in front of the whole crowd.
We only saw the soldiers. We didn't see like backstage.
Yeah,
there would have been rooms full of
makeup artists
and hairdressers and clothing stylists. Once they're all out there doing their wild, crazy shouting, going to eat someone, they're all sitting back there having a bottled water, going, holy crap, that was a big one.
Oh yeah, I know.
I hope we don't have any more cannibal feasts this month because I am pooped.
And that one was close tonight. People, we were right on time.
He almost didn't look like a complete psychopath.
No,
terrible. We can't have that.
Of course, I guess the other side of you could say there's a plausible argument that if you don't look like this, the leader and the henchmen and whatever will eat you up.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like if you walked in and go, look guys, I'm not doing the mohawk thing. They're like, eat him. So there could be motivation. Like you just said, like the guy in the Melbourne nightclub in modern society. Yeah, he's spending 90 minutes to get that hair perfectly up in the air and blah, 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 right? And he's got to go to a hairdresser. But in this environment, they may not have the makeup artist or the hairstylist. They've just got to do it because if they don't, they get eaten.
Well, see, this is a problem.
That would be pretty big motivation, I guess.
I see in, I guess, a lot of situations where you have an underclass and an overclass.
Yeah.
Or, a slavery class and the master owner class type of thing. If there's not a really obvious and easy way to tell them apart, you're going to have trouble.
Yes.
Because if
like one gang versus another.
If I look just like the person I'm oppressing, it becomes really easy then for someone to mistakenly come up and then just start oppressing me.
Yeah.
And I'll go, no, wait, hold on. I'm different. So they've got to dress as these hardcore post-apocalyptic punks.
Yeah.
Because the people who aren't dressed like that are the ones they eat.
They're the enemy, yeah. That's right.
Yes. So I think you've got a point there.
So there's like strong motivation to spend all that time.
If you can't spot the difference, at any point they're still looking at each other going, Are you food or are you
on my team?
Which way do we go with this one?
I think that's a good point.
Yeah,
I reckon that's the motivation there as well, because all gangs have that kind of motivation: dress like the boss, be like the boss.
Yeah, I mean that's why during the early 2000s, a lot of people wanted to look like, say, Robbie Williams, Justin Timberlake, Britney Spears, because otherwise they'd get eaten.
By the end.
So I think that metaphor's going a little bit far there.
Yeah, it is. But
they would be ostracized. You wouldn't be able to tell who you're allowed to dance with and who you're not allowed to dance with if you didn't look, like wear the pale jeans with the white crop top and have blonde hair, then how would the guy wearing the pajama top and the blue jeans and the artful little facial hair know that he's supposed to come up and dance with you? You just wouldn't be able to tell. It'd just be like a free-for-all. You just go for whatever looks good. It's terrible.
Oh, that's crazy, isn't it?
Crazy.
Yeah, thinking for yourself, that kind of idea.
So here's a question, though. How many movies were incorporated into this movie? How many did you count? Because I've got a number here. So Neil Marshall, I've seen several of his films.
Yeah, me too.
And he's quite he's not super serious in his films.
No, I don't think so.
I mean, Doomsday could be said to be quite a serious film.
Yeah.
It's about this Reaper virus. It's killing people and a
I think
Scotland that's fallen to anarchy and so forth. But at the same time, there's kind of a playfulness to it.
Yeah, so let's just stop there for a second. I don't know if anyone's seen Dog Soldiers. Right, that was the first movie I saw of his, and I don't have the IMDb thing, but I think it's pretty early in his career, Dog Soldiers. But
2002,
yeah, it's something like that, right? And I went and saw it. I got tickets to it at the movie, like a free pass to go, and it was one of those ones like the cinema was full, and most people were young, and it was like laugh out loud moments coupled with sheer gore terror moments.
Yes,
and he did it in a really great way. Like it was kind of, again, as someone that grew up, I watched a lot of horror when I was young. Like there was all those cliche horror moments, but then I think the gore factor went off the Richter scale kind of. But there was that funny kind of, am I actually watching a horror film or am I watching a horror comedy film? And so I think that's what you're saying. And I agree in this, there's really, action-packed moments, isn't there? And also
and things,
really strong, characters and also really strong plot points. But then there is, in some of the action, the extreme part that you go, it's a little bit tongue-in-cheek, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like I said, that the whole good thing, Fine Young Cannibal song,
right.
could have had any generic hard rock track then would have worked, but a pop track by a band named Cannibals.
Yeah. It's kind of like an inside. It's almost like he's doing an inside joke.
Well, it took me a moment there because leading up to that, and we'll talk about the music later because
the music's great.
When you start looking at films to see the good and the great in the science fiction, you really start to read more about what the art of what the director's doing.
Yeah.
And this movie's chock full of it.
Yeah.
But so the music was one set, and then suddenly this sort of pop track, a recognizable pop track, and I went, that's a really weird choice after what's been going on here and the scene. Yeah. I mean, why would you choose, what is it? That's Good Thing. By the Fine Young Cannibals. It sort of rolled into my head as I was shocked by it and had to think about it and went, okay, that's pretty cool.
So your question is, how many films do you think are within this film?
Yeah, how many films are referenced or taken inspiration
Okay, well,
from?
I can see Mad Max in this film. Yeah. All right? I can see...
So there's one.
Yeah, I can see Alien in this film.
Yep.
I can see... Well, I don't know exactly the film I'm thinking of, but there's definitely that whole scene where she and her partner at the start invade the ship and she's got the eye, and that's like a real action film from the 90s, isn't it? I don't know, there's probably a dozen, even that TV show SWAT that I think used to be around in the 90s or something, there's probably a dozen films there where they go onto a boat and they, attack.
The ship, that's
there's some sort of two mercenaries doing a drug deal, and it's so common, isn't it? It's such a common scene.
Okay, well,
I don't know. So maybe to me, it's maybe 3 films.
I pulled out 6.
Okay,
so
you've thought about this.
There we go. So Aliens. So the entry into Scotland is Aliens.
Yeah,
they're in the APCs, troop soldiers. They go in there, and it's that quiet. He even says, "Check those corners."
Yeah,
which is direct apone from Aliens when they're first going through the things, and then there's the in Aliens there's a woman in the wall who's got her head hanging down and she's encased, and they lift her head up And then her eyes open and go, oh my God, she's alive. That's when the alien shit happens. And this one here is a woman outside the APC, just standing there.
Yeah.
And he goes, oh, I've got to go get her.
Yeah.
Like, God knows why.
Yeah, I know.
And he goes out, and as soon as he said, oh, she's alive, I'll take her in. All the, people just start coming out of the
woodwork.
walls, basically. Yeah. So straight up aliens. And then the escape out of that, again, that's aliens. Escape from New York.
Yes.
So she's got one eye, for crying out loud. An eye patch. So just like Snake Plissken. And, the machine guns blasting away. The music,
that's the other movie, actually, I was thinking.
The music even through there is that 80s... I think that's what I found I was talking about the music here. The start music is kind of that 80s synth rock tension action movie stuff. Like it was quite noticeable. I was going, gee, this is anachronistic sounding soundtrack for what is set in 2038 or whatever. Yeah. But and then she's getting her eyeball out and she's like shooting up guys, and I went, okay, this is just purely Escape from New York. Bit of 28 Days Later in there. Yeah. Of course, the empty streets, the quiet, isolation. It's great. Yeah. And you said Mad Max, but also there's James Bond. She's jumping this Bentley. She's doing that car chase. Yeah, before it turns into Mad Max. She's going down the mountain pass, and one car is chasing after her, and there's sort of that bumping into each other. Yeah. After that, it becomes purely Mad Max. Yeah. But it's a Bentley. It's a classic, British brand. Yes. And it's a pumped up sports car. Yeah. I actually went through 3 of those cars in the filming of this. Yeah, right. But one of them, they accidentally drove into a gorge. I don't know the story behind that, apparently. But there you go. But so the other 2, though, one of them was used for the stunts. Mm. And they were able to resell that. They were quite surprised that after jumping through the bus and doing the skids and the bumping and banging, they just got the panels beaten back out and polished up, and it was like fine. Right, they sold it again. Yep. So there you go. Bentley did not sponsor this film. Bentley does not sponsor any films, apparently. Yep. They don't do product placement. They're a little bit too high class for that. High class, not like BMW and Jaguar.
An Audi.
And finally, like something like Robin Hood or something. Yes. That was a surprising turn in this film.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, so... And each of these sections has its own soundtrack to it. We start off with as I said, the 80s sort of synth action stuff. We got to this pop music and more contemporary. And then in the Robin Hood sequence, we've got choir, vocals, and almost more classical medieval sort of sounding music through to then a contemporary cinematic soundtrack of orchestral type stuff as she goes through the James Bond sequence and into the Mad Max chase. Yes. You start paying attention to these things and you really start to go, okay, he's very purposely choosing, the music is not a set soundtrack throughout. It changes, I suppose, time period and tone. Yes, definitely. As each section of this movie comes through. And I derived a fair bit of pleasure from that. That's quite good.
The film is pretty vast, isn't it? When you break it down like the way you've just done it, then it's made me think, because you think, at the start you've kind of got this, mother-daughter outbreak, government clampdown, and then you've got this really high-octane action sequence, and then you've got and sort of political thriller, like that could be a James Bond or a Mission Impossible styled sort of scene, you know what I mean? So you've gone from kind of more of a maybe a traditional kind of horror opening film, and then it becomes this really high octane, explosions, gunfights kind of scene, and then the dirty cop and the bad politician, and them kind of doing dirty trick, like it's almost a bit spy thriller. Yeah. Then you kind of into this crazy apocalyptic anarchic Mad Max sort of world, and then you're into Robin Hood Men in Tights, like Robin Hood, like, or The Princess Bride. You're kind of on the road, and there's big epic, Scotland Highlands that are beautifully shot. There's a nice helicopter shot in there, I know, where they're like trailing over the mountain. Castle. They go through the tunnel, don't they, to shortcut, and then they come across this ruthless castle.
I could also almost throw Narnia in there, because that tunnel, the whole purpose of that tunnel was to take us from
one world to another,
Scotland into the medieval ideal. Yeah. That's quite wonderful. So with all of that, is this a hope, a warning, or an experiment?
I found that this film hard to clearly break into those three. I don't think hope at all. I think it's between warning and experiment. I'm leaning a bit more into an experiment that goes wrong, an experiment with a warning or with a caution. I feel like it's an experiment because if you say, here's this pandemic, it's a hypothetical at the start of the film, and also on top of that, well, then this is how the government dealt with it. And then we fast forward the 30 years into the future, that's kind of then a hypothetical, like, would that realistically happen or not?
Yeah.
And that's what the film kind of details. That's what the story is. So to me, I'm thinking more of an experiment in that it's a hypothetical experimental future after the government makes a decision like this right now.
Yeah, what would that outcome be?
What would that outcome be if the government did that versus kind of what we've done with COVID? And it's really interesting to watch a film like this. I read an article as well, them talking about the I read a recent article, it was like 5 pandemic films, and they got a film reviewer to kind of talk about them, but they also got, and it was a leading Australian doctor, I don't know who it was exactly, the doctor's name, but he also rated the films in their realistic kind of outcomes, and it was that Steven Soderbergh film that was around this vintage, it is, I think, is it called Pandemic, or I think it might be called Pandemic. It's quite an interesting film, that one, Steven Soderbergh one, where the Gwyneth Paltrow sort of starts the film and she dies really quickly. Sorry?
I think it might just be called Pandemic.
Pandemic, yeah. That was the one that the doctor said was the most realistic.
Or Outbreak.
No, Outbreak's the 90s Dustin Hoffman one. That was another one they did talk about.
Pandemic,
yes. But it is interesting. I don't want to go down those films right now, but it is interesting because this film, like, it's such a hard-edge approach from the British government to kind of like lock Scotland off with a great big wall. And then and armoured, I
noticed that
tanks
the
and all
wall
that kind
went
of thing.
across Hadrian's Wall,
Yeah,
which is the Roman defence system against the Scottish. Because, if anything, England needs defence from the Scots.
Yes, of course, at all times. So it's a real hypothetical kind of version of it that maybe wouldn't happen. And with COVID, we can see, well, no, this wouldn't necessarily be the approach.
I thought that was interesting as well. I agree with the experiment point of view, but I was wondering about that because the difference here is this Reaper virus. First of all, it's got a really scary name.
It does. Super
but
scary.
Its death rate was phenomenal.
Yeah.
I got the impression it was like
it's
like Ebola style death levels.
Yeah.
Like better than 50%.
It had to be at least, right?
And I'm thinking, how much more serious? So you'd have to have a fair incubation period because that's what makes COVID good in terms of a good, capable virus, is that it takes about 2 weeks before you start showing symptoms, roughly speaking. And then when you've got symptoms, it progresses a little bit slowly and then the sudden on, and you're only incapacitated. So from the time of exposure to the time where you're kind of going, I've got to stop, it could be 2-3 weeks or more. Yeah. And even once you get over the worst of it, you still might have a few more weeks after that. So you've got this plenty of time to spread it around, particularly in those 2-3 weeks before you're incapacitated. Yep. So if this was a virus similar to that, where 2-3 weeks could go by, people could be wandering around, not a clue in the world that they're just about to drop dead. Yeah. And then you had this, rather aggressive, people come out with boils. That's very Ebola style, hemorrhagic sort of smallpoxy type thing. Then I think our responses to it, because no one would just go, it's just a bad flu. Yeah. Because you can see people, they're like pustulating and vomiting and, dying.
Their behaviour's changing rapidly.
In droves. Yeah. You would get a much more, you wouldn't get this kind of, should we be in lockdown? Should we be wearing masks? Yeah. Should we? People, they'd be going, not only should we be in lockdown and should be wearing masks, but we should definitely keep anyone that we're afraid of or concerned about. And so in this case here, you've got the old England-Scotland divide. Yeah. Is I suppose it's traditional in some many ways. Like there's been conflict at that border for various reasons at various times. Yeah, it'd be very easy then to go, okay, well, that's where it's coming from. Chop them right off. I don't know where they get the resources to build a wall at such speed, but the concept of closing the border in a very hard way and then having to enforce it, because if you're some poor Scotsman or an Englishman caught north of the border when they close that border, you're going, well, you know, I've got maybe a 40% chance of surviving the initial outbreak. And then of that 40%, now you know, we're cut off from all aid. I don't know how to farm or do anything.
Yeah.
You know, what is going to become of me? They're like all
a cannibal.
Power. And,
I'll eat my neighbour.
That's the funny thing is they turn to eating people, and yet they pass through a big field of cows. Why don't they eat the cows? There are lots of cows and sheep in Scotland.
Yeah.
In fact, if 60% of the population all died from a virus, there would be so many cows and sheep and chickens and pigs and God knows what else, and deep-fried Mars bars, that you wouldn't have to worry about eating people.
No.
But anyway, I suppose tastes change over time, don't they? You know. But anyway, I did think it was an interesting experiment where they just sort of said, okay, we've got this really aggressive virus. What might happen if the government decides to go for a really hard lockdown? Because I could kind of imagine that level of ferocity being exhibited, because if people were afraid enough, they would agree to just about anything. Particularly if you're south of the border, you'd say, close that border off, shoot anyone who tries to get across.
Yeah.
And in fact, if it's that deadly, you probably would.
Yeah.
I dare say you would get to that point where you'd sort of say, seriously, do not try to cross this border.
Yeah.
Because...
Yeah, well, actually,
if one person gets through, it's not the case of, now we're going to have to contact trace and we're going to have to isolate. What a pain in the bum.
Well, actually, now that you've just said it that way, it's like made me think, because I've watched a few comic videos about WA having such a hard border during this COVID to the rest of Australia. And I mean, that's to COVID. So you are right. Like if you had some sort of virus like this Reaper virus where people are out in boils and stuff, imagine if they were coming to the WA border.
Well, you wouldn't
and we're in here and you're okay. You'd be like, shoot those bastards.
Yes, do not let them in.
Do not let them in. We're okay in here. Like, don't let them in. Maybe we would build a massive wall.
And you wouldn't get anyone denying.
You wouldn't get anyone on the West Australian side saying, don't build it. Like, you'd get everyone going, no, build it.
Yeah.
Like, it is funny, isn't it, actually, when you do think about it. So maybe it's not that far-fetched.
Yeah, I think the speed at which they took the action to do that. Yeah, anyway. I suppose this is the experiment. This movie, they make that choice, and what comes out of it is a further experiment of two sides. You've got Sol, who has got the survivors in Glasgow, and they're sort of doing survival of the fittest, and they're following an idealized, an ideal anarchy or despotism or whatever you want to look at it there. And then you've got what's the guy's name? Andy McDowell's character?
Yeah, he...
Cain, yes. Yeah. Of course, Cain.
Yeah,
Cain and Abel. He's going to have the mark of Cain.
Yeah.
So Cain, then, he has his idealized version, which is sort of a return to quote-unquote tradition, which I'm looking at going, yes, but do you have to give up on, like, hygiene? Wouldn't you have more hygiene? But they're all grubby and, like, dirty and, like... You'd think out of a pandemic, maybe you go live in castles and you're more agricultural, but I have a feeling your hygiene will still be quite high.
I think you'd still use soap, wouldn't you?
Yeah, water at the very least. But they were all grubby peasants.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Cain just wanted to be realistic, in that way.
Yes.
What was your favourite scene?
Favourite scene? Oh, there's a couple good ones here. So one of my favourite scenes has got to be the fight in the cells where she's escaping from Sol's team.
Yep.
So she gets out there and she's talking to Cain's daughter.
Yeah. And
then that spiky-headed woman comes in and has this fight with her and lops off her hand, and then you get the blood spurt.
Yeah.
And then chops off her head and... and then just to top it... So this is, a bit Black Knight and the Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Yeah.
Lopping off limbs and so forth. But then just stepping around the corner is just some dude. I think he's literally going, and he goes, whoa! And she chucks the thing and he turns around and just runs off.
Yeah.
That was this lovely balance there of, hardcore, badass fighting badass with blades in a dungeon. Like, that's great.
Yes.
But then, and you get like heads being lopped off as the teenage Surrey inside me, because he never dies, is going, yes, blood, chop, chop, chop. And then you just get this guy, oh, hi.
Yeah. What have I come across?
And
I don't want to be any part of this.
And that's that lightening of the mood. It's sort of like, here's something pretty grim. Like, really, someone being butchered. But then here's just that little bit there, which is sort of realistic. Yeah. This guy wasn't looking for a fight. He wasn't coming running down there. He was just coming down there. It's like
doing his check or whatever.
Just strolling, having a stroll. I don't know. Maybe
it's very similar when she broke free at Kane's place. There was sort of a similar scene, wasn't it? Because she fights that big guy that obviously is probably never lost. And then when she starts beating him, she does things that are kind of against the rules, and that's like she climbs up and gets the weapon off the other guy, beats up the other guy and gets the weapon. And then when she does kind of get to that point of winning, her sidekick kind of he's escaped and he's got his gun and starts blowing the crap out of people. So it's kind of, people aren't expecting that, So there's that unexpected violence in this film, which is nice.
Yeah, it's quite good. In fact, I've got a different take on this. This is something I want to be trying. It's something I've got
a hypothesis
off the internet. No, it's not a hypothesis. It's just an interesting thing. Is how else might I describe what might be a little blurb that you give Netflix? Netflix has like one sentence.
Yep.
So here's my attempt at a one sentence, which, well, you'll see what it is. So,
Surrey's attempt at a Netflix
blurb. A handicapped spinster is driven to a violent killing spree in an effort to reconnect with the mother who abandoned her as a child.
Yeah, that covers the bases.
That is essentially the movie, isn't it?
Yeah.
She's missing an eye. She's not attached to anyone. It's like there's certain connotations using the term handicapped and spinster.
There is.
But she's driven to and she goes on a killing spree. Like, seriously, she kills a lot of people.
She does.
Possibly unnecessarily.
Yeah.
In many cases. But, there you go. And the reason for her going up there is to reconnect with her, estranged mother. Yeah.
Well, she doesn't know if her mother has lived all this time, has she?
No clue.
No.
So that's the thing. I'll try that with our future movies as well as we go along. See if I can come up with some sort of an alternative way of describing. Because if I read that and then saw that movie, I'd go, oh yeah. But again, if I read that, I'd be going, should I watch this movie? Interesting. But there you go. So it's a science fiction film. What is something of science fiction that you liked in this film?
Her eye. So just after you have said she's a disabled spinster, I'm thinking, yeah, it's the disability bit that I really like. I mean, it was so cool. Again, like the gore of a Neil Marshall film, you have in that opening sequence a mother and a child being shot at by the English, and the child gets shot in the head, like in the eye, and you don't really see it, but you sort of see her eye damaged, and and then the mum hands her over to the helicopter, the British, and the guy hops off. So he's a good guy, he hops off.
Yeah, I'm surprised we didn't catch up with him later. That would have been awesome.
I think he was just devoured, wasn't he?
Yeah, but it would have been good though, because he was such a nice man.
He was a nice guy. Anyway, so she has survived, and then to jump that 30 years, and then now she's like this trained military cop, whatever she is, SAS kind of badass. You send her into the operations. You don't want to send anyone else in. But she's got this eye. That's one thing. But then this eye can be used in so many ways, like around the corner, and she can see what's going on with it. I just thought that was a really cool... I'm sure anyone with a prosthetic eye would love their eye to do that, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
I mean, like it's a little camera thing, and she can rewind and re-watch it, right? Like, so she can see it live, but also record onto those little disc things and give them away.
Have you seen the Black Mirror? In the Black Mirror, they have a... for those who don't know, Black Mirror is an anthology science fiction show, and it kind of... many of the episodes kind of share a universe.
Yeah.
Like, they sort of have similar technologies turn up for different uses or at different stages of development.
Right.
And one of them is this, recording and viewing everything that you're doing and being able to go back through your memories. And that, there's one episode where that's particularly important.
That's
other
right.
episodes,
I have seen that one. Yeah.
Other episodes where it's featured, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's not the star of that episode.
Yeah, and so in the Black Mirror, he kind of looks at his job interview or something, doesn't he? And it's something like that in the Black Mirror, isn't it? Yeah, and he comes to a party and they rewind in. Yeah,
it's
how
part
he
of
did.
It's part of it. Also, the crux of that is the relationship.
Yeah,
where the woman finds his recording of an affair he had.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we won't go into that because people might not have seen it. But yeah, I liked this idea that it'd be so cool to like pop out a knife, throw it around the corner, see what's going on around the corner. So handy for someone like her.
Not very hygienic.
Not very hygienic because who knows whether who's walked along this floor, is there any blood or whatever. She can pop it back in at any other time. When she's trapped in that dungeon with souls, the guy's like examining it and he's like going, what? Because he can see the mirror image, can't he? In the eyeball, remember? He's sitting on the ground and he's like looking at it and he starts to see someone coming up on himself because it's her.
Yeah.
And so like it can be even used as like that as a trap, and I just thought it was a cool piece of sci-fi. I mean, people would love that, I reckon.
It is always nice when you have the, I guess, augmentation, unintentional augmentation or coincidental augmentation. Because she lost an eye.
Yeah.
So, an eye prosthesis is entirely probable.
Yep.
But why not make it useful?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I liked it. I thought that was a cool piece of sci-fi. Had you had seen this film before?
No, this is the first
brand
time.
New for the first time. And how did this film make you feel at the end of it?
At the end of it, happy.
Happy?
Yes.
In it, you said teenage Surrey was happy.
It kept
the gore, the blood,
it kept tickling,
the guts.
But it was also enough kind of, as I said, efforts at art, if you like. There's that sort of input. You could feel there was effort and heart put into making the film. Yeah. It wasn't purely a soulless piece. There was an homage to favourite films and directors. I was reading actually a couple of characters then. One name was Miller and one was Carpenter. Okay, Frank Carpenter, Miller, John Carpenter, Frank Miller. Yeah, for Mad Max and like Escape from New York.
Yeah.
There was another interesting thing was the
Miller is Mad Max. Yeah.
Rhona Mitra is Annie McDowell's. No. The Prime Minister is Annie McDowell's nephew.
Right.
Or is it Rhona? I can't remember. One of them, there's a relationship there anyway. So that's interesting. But yeah, I got to the end of that and I sort of felt... I liked the Prime Minister Hatcher.
Yeah.
Because it was close to, Thatcher.
Yeah.
But also, he's from Battlestar Galactica, which I really like the reboot of. He's been in a couple other shows like that. It's quite good.
Quite often you find, I think this film's a little bit cultural, isn't it? Because, and we would probably do the same in Australian culture, but, films like this, when they're American, again, if the president is shown in a film like this, they will tend to be a good guy. But I think, again, culturally, because it's British, we end up having the Prime Minister was kind of okay, and he got spat on and died.
A bit limp-wristed.
Yeah. When, what's his name? You just said, took over the role.
Yeah, old Scottish man.
Yeah. When he took over the role, he was the real ruthless kind of Prime Minister in charge then, wasn't he? And I think, again, that's a bit cultural, that the leader's not necessarily the good guy.
Yeah, what was that guy's name?
I don't have it down on my list.
There was a meme on it. There was a point I want to make about it because it was the name of Nazi.
Yeah, but I think, again, a bit culturally effective because we have leaders. We don't have that same sort of patriotic leadership that the Americans will have, for example. And I think the British are a bit the same, aren't we? We're a bit cynical of our leader.
Yes. I said Annie McDowell. It's not Annie McDowell, it's Malcolm McDowell.
Malcolm.
He's just anyone who's listening is going, Andy
I
McDowell.
know, I was like,
that's
Andy
a woman.
I know. I was, oh, you were confusing me.
Okay, yes. I'm sorry.
That's where I got confused myself.
Yes. DavidOHara was the guy.
He plays the acting prime minister or something, doesn't he? But he's also the leader.
Canaris.
Canaris.
Yes.
Is that his name?
Yes. Canaris, which is a name of... It's taken from a Nazi guy in World War II who got in trouble.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it was, but yeah. And indeed, in this, Canaris is a bit ruthless.
Yeah, he wants to kind of lock everyone. His plan, remember, at the start is, well, as London has an outbreak, we can kind of like isolate London then with the canal.
Bits of it, yeah.
And it's like 4 million people. Oh, well, we'll just let them
Well,
go.
we are getting a little bit full.
Yeah.
Because I think the UK itself is isolated from the rest of the world as well.
Yeah.
It's just that London still had the resources and wasn't infected, but now it was.
Yeah.
So he was hoping to let the death toll mount a little bit for some. That's really.
And there is a scene where he says, well, if we let a few go, like it's not the end of the world.
It's not
as
us.
long as we are okay here.
Yeah, it's not me, so.
So who cares?
For the greater good, we'll let 4 million people die. Why not?
Yeah. So have you been up to any recent science fiction or creative stuff yourself?
I've been now reading my short story to my wife, picked up a couple little minor details, and I've also then started writing so I'm writing a screenplay for that.
Yep.
So I'm getting out what they call a series Bible.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all my notes about the world, where this story would be going.
Exciting. We're going to see this on Netflix soon, sorry?
It'll be on Netflix pretty soon, I think.
Okay.
Like, if not Netflix, look, there's
by the time we're recording
channel.
the next episode, it's going to be
There'll be a streaming channel out there that wants this, There's precious few people writing scripts for Netflix.
That's right.
So they'll take whatever they can get a hold of because it's so rare and uncommon.
Yeah.
No, primarily it's really just an interesting exercise to get some of those skills because I've written audio drama, I've written novels, short stories, music, and so this is sort of something else to have a go at and see how it goes, see where it ends up.
Nice.
So I don't know what will happen to it, but you never find out if you don't do it.
Yeah, definitely.
So there we go. So that's looking good. Again, it's being based off the short story, so there's a few details are changing. There's some gender reassignment, gender flips going on. So the original was Hansel and Gretel. I'm swapping the
Gretel
gender
and
of Hansel and Gretel around because I think it'd be more interesting.
Yeah.
And allows for a bit more dynamic tension there.
Mm-hmm.
And there's another 2 characters. So it's going to be like revolving around 3 stories at the same time. One of those sort of deals.
Mm-hmm.
So where they're each dealing with a slightly different aspect, and they will obviously come together as the plot goes on. And yes.
Lovely.
So there's a reporter who was a woman in the book, who now becomes a man. Again, because I think it just works better.
Okay.
It makes it a little bit more interesting, mentally interesting, socially interesting.
Okay.
Because of the role that this character will be playing, it would be too cliched as a woman. Like I wrote it as a woman, this reporter reporting on good time news stories, just because, primarily because Hansel was a boy, a teenage boy, and so it made more sense that he's going to see some hot news presenter and pay attention and want to go talk. But the role of that news presenter is going to be playing in the larger story arc would be, I don't know, maybe it'd be too... It just wouldn't work as interestingly, I think.
Okay.
If it was a female. I'm trying to think of how best to explain it, but yeah, it's just there's certain expectations you get from a female news presenter and a male news presenter, and I like to challenge the expectations a little bit, and it just makes it, you've got to work ever so slightly, not a lot harder, but just that little bit harder for this character, for its growth arc, if you will.
Yep.
And that just, I think, adds a little bit more what do you call it, drama.
Yeah, and
without having to actually write any extra different. It could be exactly the same, but by changing the gender and thus some of the expectation, then
yeah.
So
well, it's the old, Ripley, isn't it? You know, like the script was a man and they cast it as a female. You know, they reversed it. So the expectations from the audience are, oh, well, what would a man do, you know, in this situation as the hero? But no, it's a female hero. And the audience is kind of subverted to that then in Alien, isn't it? You know, like
without going too much on Alien again, because we did 2.5 episodes.
We did a whole episode on it. Go back to it.
Go back. But yeah, it's that same thing there where when Ripley says, no, we've got to follow the rules, we're going to do this properly by the book, you kind of almost feel like, oh, she's being difficult.
Yeah.
As opposed to going, she's being intelligent and ordered and logical and rational. Yeah. So you do get that expectation. You've got to work that little bit harder to stop yourself from going down one track and go, no, this is that is the sensible thing to do. You get distracted by your own baggage.
You do.
Basically. And so, yes, it's that kind of thing where I'm trying to get the audience should be a little bit distracted. There should be a talking point. It should not a major talking point, not like, oh, wow, you're doing some sort of big
gender.
Yeah, like gender issues thing. But rather just the point is there'll be some actions this character does where you will have to, that little bit extra. And then it makes sense that it's a male character doing it. It kind of, okay, I see now. Yeah, so anyway, that's that. Yourself, you were working on some like short movies.
Yeah. Well, the plan is to come. I think being like a lot of people do, it's a bit cliched, start of the year kind of idea, but the concept I did today was to kind of just reinvigorate my creative juices a little bit, and to not that I didn't today sit down and like go, oh, this is the map for the year, but I've got that in my head and penciled out. But it's like just I've spent the last couple of weeks really kind of thinking about what is it that I want to get to, you know, what's the end goal for this year, not saying for the next 20 years or anything, but what's the end goal, I think, for this year, and then just starting the year right and being like, this is what I want to do, and this is where I'm going, and this is how I'm going to do it. So again, it's not like fine-tuned to the exact date and etc., but just trying to think, okay, well, if I want to get to this finish line, what needs to start, when, where, how, and you know, how is that going to actually happen? So you and I are doing it with Space Brains. We're sort of meeting a bit more, and we're going to kind of modify Space Brains in different ways online, and you know, we've got goals for Space Brains. So it's the same for that for myself in the creative pursuit. That okay, well, I want to do this. You know, it's easy to kind of go, oh, I've got 100 ideas, I'm just going to do them. But like, you've got to start kind of that snowball effect, don't you?
You've got to pick one of them at least.
Yeah, you've got to pick one and actually go, okay, well then I'll do that by this month and do that. So yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at. It's not specifically sci-fi, although I think the short film, which I've said probably the last couple of times on our podcast, it is that one of them is a science fiction. It's a time travel one. So I've got a feeling that that's going to win the day as the first one of the year. So, yeah.
Well,
so
being time travel will be the last one and the first one at the same time.
It could be the last one and the first one. I'm done. Mission accepted. So, and it's interesting because I'm having this rollout effect from the memory of I've entered in a bunch of film festivals. First time I've ever done film festivals. It's been picked, I think, for 4. It's had 1 award. But it's been rejected by about 7 now, you know, and so there's still a few more that I entered as the strategy for the 12-month strategy to come over the next couple of months. So that's been a big lesson as well. Yeah, so kind of seeing, A, how the festival circuit works, B, what film festivals are kind of like, what they're looking for as well, being that the memory is a sort of more of an adult content, you know, psychological thriller film. So there's been such a huge learning experience from that. So it's kind of like, if you want to go down the film festival path, I've learnt a lot about that, you know. And so when I go to make a film as well, it's like, what is the end audience of this? Is it film festivals? Is it a calling card? Should it just be online for everyone just to see and you try to promote it that way? Should you do like a local audience? You know, should you do a Patreon page for it? You know, like all of these different things. So the real blessing from doing the Memory as a film festival circuit is kind of learning about the film festival circuit. Yeah. So all of that is kind of running through my brain for what is the next logical step.
Next logical step.
For the filmmaking career.
It'll be great. Whatever the next logical step is, it'll be great.
Let's hope so. So we should get into Doomsday. It'd be great to know a little bit more from Neil Marshall. So if Neil ends up stumbling across our podcast on a...
Or more likely he gets tagged in every single bit of social that we ever do.
That I ever put up, me yelling people to listen to Space Brains. But yeah, it'd be interesting to know what Neil Marshall's intentions were a bit with this film and coming out from making a couple of horror films, you know, and then moving into a movie like this that's quite different. Well, what I think is quite different. You know,
he's directed a couple episodes of Game of Thrones, for example.
Yeah. So yeah, it'd be interesting to talk to Neil about his intentions of this. So maybe after he's listened to the podcast, he'd be keen to have a little chat about that. Or if anyone is out there that played a role on Doomsday and would like to talk to us about it, or even if you watched it and have an opinion on Doomsday.
I'd be happy if Andy McDowell contacted me to talk about Doomsday.
Andy McDowell, yes, of course, Andy McDowell.
Probably more suitable for Malcolm, but...
It'd be more suitable for Malcolm, but you know... Anyway.
Andy gets a hold of me.
Andy gets a hold, which apparently does. So let's get stuck into... So it was written and directed by Neil Marshall, came out in 2008, primarily filmed in the UK. We have Rhona Mitra played Eden Sinclair, who's our lead actor, the one-eyed gun woman.
One-eyed, one-gunned, flying...
Kicking ass, whatever.
Killer? I don't know.
Yeah. She's a little bit like...
Keira Knightley?
Keira Knightley, yeah. No, but I was going to say also in terms of character, a little bit more like, Underworld.
Mila Jovovich's...
Well, that's not Underworld.
No, Underworld was Keira Knightley.
No.
No?
No, Underworld is Kate Beckinsale.
Oh, Kate Beckinsale. I get these
Australian actress, yeah.
I get all these people
but
mixed up.
But it kind of reminded, like not in the story in terms of Underworld.
Rhona was in Rise of the Lycans, Underworld.
Ah, right. Okay. There you go.
Well.
So they kind of had a bit of a similar sort of feel to it. In that tough woman that kicks ass, but also, of course, what you just said with Mila Jovovich.
Yeah, Resident Evil.
So you got this really strong female lead who kicks ass.
Yes.
In this sort of Underworld. Special mention to Adrian Lester, who played Norton, her sort of co-soldier, or colleague, whatever you want to call it. He's been in a heap of British TV and movies and stuff like that. Leanne Ligerberg played Viper. Now, she is a stunt woman / actress. She's the one that gets her head chopped off. So it's no wonder that fight scene was really good. So she's a stunt woman traditionally.
Because what I was wondering in this film, so they've been there 30 years.
Yeah.
So a lot of those people there would have been either born in that time, or were
Eden was a little child, right?
Or very little, like they don't really remember before times. So who taught them how to ride motorcycles, shoot guns, and fight with swords? Because they seem very competent in their martial arts.
Yeah.
And yet nobody who knew martial arts would have survived.
Well,
or
no,
at least
you can't say that.
Almost nobody. Like, they would have all been... Like, I didn't see any old people there.
No.
They were all...
They would have died off, old people,
all in their mid-30s or younger. So I'm thinking...
But is it just survival of the fittest? Sorry, that you grow up in that world, you become a fighter. You just fight from day one.
Yeah, but they were quite stylistic in their fighting. Mind you, to tell the truth though, the soldiers did just like kick their ass when they actually fought them.
Yeah.
So maybe they were just thought they were good at fighting, or they were good at the fighting they did. Yeah. But a trained fighter could actually just defeat them.
Yeah.
Which is what happened in the castle.
But it's it's kind of like all you would need is one reasonably well-trained fighter to kind of pass on how to fight, and then maybe even if they died out, then the people that have learnt that pass that on.
Yeah, I mean, and because it was
And
very
it's not
important.
quite like, it's not like they're doing like complete Karate Kid formal fighting, are they? They're still doing street fighting.
It is pretty scrappy. But it's one of those things you see look and go, geez, where'd you learn to fight with two swords like that? You know, that's hard.
Yeah, and of course, Andy Malcolm McDowell, playing Kane, and Craig Conway played Sol. I mean, Craig Conway, I don't know his sort of background in terms of, I know he's been in a lot of stuff. He must have had a ball playing this character. He must have this is just sheer fun playing this, right?
He was the classic punk bad guy, wasn't he?
You're playing Sid from, the Sex Pistols in an anarchist, cookbook, aren't you? Like it's terrific. Okay, we start the film. It is England-Scotland border, June 20, 2008. You got this mass group of people trying to get across into England. At the same time, the British are like welding a wall shut. The soldiers are standing there. They're trying to keep the peace. This big mob are trying to kind of get in. There's a mother and a daughter. They're kind of saying, come on, let us in, you British twats, or something like that. And there's a little bit of hostilities between them, which quickly escalates to quite a violent
when
skirmish.
There's an infected person is revealed.
That's right.
They see under his hood he's got all these pustules. And then the soldier, of course, reacts poorly and shoots him and sprays blood over all the nearby people. And all the nearby people go, oh, well, okay, that's it.
Thanks, mate.
Now I'm really panicked.
Yeah.
Before, it was just kind of, oh, you can't do this to us. And now it's like, we're going in. And so, they rush there and they overthrow these soldiers that are poor left out there. But they weld the door shut.
They do. They lock them out. There's a woman with a young girl, which was in there. She kind of like flees the madness a bit, and the girl gets shot, random, accidentally sort of shot in the eye. She cops a spray, so to speak. And when this sort of helicopter's like, they're trying to get out of Scotland, the British helicopter's getting out, she pleads to take the child. And one of the soldiers does a really good moment. He kind of hops off, and so they do take the child. I would have thought, being trained soldiers, they'd probably just dump the child, probably. I don't really know.
Hard to tell. I don't think they were hardened soldiers.
Maybe they weren't hardened enough, those ones.
This isn't like, the depths of Vietnam where people are so, psychologically scarred by the horrors.
True. Yep.
They're still, domestic.
We jump forward in time then to London 2035. But on a little side note, I liked that. I liked such a big jump. I like this. So I kind of was like, oh, okay, world building. We've jumped into another, universe in a way. It's nice.
See the outcome.
So we get told that through the sort of government, I think we get shown some news footage, don't we, in this sort of opening sequence and stuff. And we get told that although the quarantine was deemed a success, the method was kind of not seen as very politically okay by the rest of the world. And the UK has kind of been, they call it a pariah state.
Yeah, I think also the fact that they had a big outbreak of the Reaper, it's probably difficult to get access into other countries where they sort of go, well, you reckon coming to WA is hard, we got to quarantine for 2 weeks at your own expense. Imagine coming from somewhere with the potential Reaper virus. I can only imagine
Mark McGowan would not allow that.
No. There'd be Clive Palmer with pustules on his face going, let
me in.
No, but look, you clearly got the Reaper virus. No, it's what I normally look like, you fool. I've been out in the sun too long, that's all.
I'm just pussy.
I've been up in Queensland in the sun too long, and just let me in.
Eating too much fried food. The UK has kind of collapsed into a bit of a shaky world, a bit of a dystopia, rife with unemployment. There's a bit of civil unrest, and there's extreme economic turmoil. I'm pretty sure we got told a bit of that by voiceover and some images.
Yeah, you can sort of see it though too. Yeah. There's people, like, you can see
things have been rough.
It's not purely post-apocalyptic, but it's looking a bit rough in town. And
police no longer they've got the police raid helmet on all the time.
Yeah, the police are not taking chances.
No, and so then we cut to these two soldiers, a woman who is Sinclair growing up, and her partner.
And we figure that out quickly because she takes an eyeball out.
Takes an eyeball out. You go, oh, okay, she must be the little girl. Her and her partner have this brutal, violent shootout. The tone of the film changed quite drastically, I thought. here, because it just became an action-packed kind of spy thriller.
This is an R-rated film.
It is. And
which I thought was an odd choice because this genre and the presentation is very teenage.
It is.
And I don't think I mean, it's the blood and the violence is also a bit cartoonish in many ways. I
It
think
is.
R rating is kind of a bit. I see why, but I mean, my 8-year-old son was watching some of it. He watched that woman get her head chopped off.
Yeah.
And he's like totally fine with that. He's
Yeah.
like, okay,
I think the thing is sometimes a head chopped off is so extreme because to actually hack someone's head off, like, I mean, okay, you can do it with a samurai sword that's like super sharp, but if you're just got like a normal axe, I think you've got to do a few chops, right?
Yeah, I mean,
like,
you watch that Fortune Fire.
And...
Have you ever watched Fortune Fire?
No, but I've seen some of these shows like Mythbusters and even other shows.
On YouTube, you look at Fortune Fire. It's on the History Channel, apparently.
Yeah.
But it's basically sword and weaponsmiths.
Yeah.
Competing. They've got to make like a weapon, and then they test it on. Armor and wood, and they'll have a pig carcass, for example. And even this great big swords and stuff. The sharpest, best sword I've seen still took 2 chops. Really good slices to get through, and that was a pig carcass that wasn't squirming or anything. It didn't have its guts in it. It's just, but it took 2 chops to get through the spinal cord and so forth.
I can't remember which film it is. Maybe it's a horror film, but it's like the guy like turns and he like. Tries to, I think he's trying to cut the bad guy's head off or something, and he's like, cuts it, and then the guy moves a bit, and then like he cuts him again, and then they're really nasty gouges into the person, but he can't chop his head off, you know what I mean? Like, and the guy's then like still sort of half alive, and he's like chomping away, and he's got like this big sword thing, and it takes about 4 or 5 goes to do it, and I felt like that's realistic for a head being ripped off.
Yeah, I think so.
So I do feel in that. Whereas, but what I was going to say, in this opening sequence, the shootout between these mercenaries or whatever, like there's a naked woman in the bath and she just like sprays the bath.
Yes.
And it's really cleverly done because it's along the bath, so then just blood starts oozing out with the water through the bath, But I think that's where you get this kind of what I mean by a real brutal shootout. It's like a naked woman in the bath, the mercenaries coming around the corner, like holding up the big knife.
Upsetting expectations. Naked woman in the bath, you think quite a vulnerable situation.
Yeah.
She whips out a shotgun and started going for it. It's not like she was, just having a bit of a bath.
It's a little bit, I suppose, when I actually do think about that kind of level of action, it's a bit Tarantino, isn't it? It's like this kind of extreme, violent shootout, like... You don't just have a naked woman in the bath. Help me! It's like she's got a machine gun too. Anyway, they do that, and the woman has this bionic eye, which is pretty cool. Like she throws it on the ground, she can see around the corners, and it helps her end the gunfight as well. Afterwards, she's sitting down, kind of reflecting on the 15 people that she just killed.
The killing spree.
The killing spree again. It's kind of suggesting that she does this. Her partner did get his head blown off.
She's bitter because she's a handicapped spinster.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So she's bitter.
You keep selling that. You could just see if that was the pitch to it wasn't to Netflix, and they just go, no, we're not going to do it. We're not buying. We're going to buy it. We're going to buy it. We liked what you emailed, and you've come into the room, Neil, with this pitch, and we don't like it anymore.
Could you imagine it? You're pitching the goes, okay, so she's just like execute all these bad guys, and she's sitting there, yes, and she's feeling bitter because she's a handicapped spinster.
No,
right.
You had me.
Later on, she takes out her anger by castrating him. Okay, look, you're going too far. This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Okay, she's reflecting because this, but I think she is. You did get the feeling that she's not satisfied. She doesn't feel like there's something. Satisfied. There's something missing. Like she's just done this big shootout and she's won the day here apparently, but she's not like crowing and fist pumping and going, yeah, boy.
She's won the battle, but she hasn't won at life,
Yeah, she's just kind of like this level of excitement, this sort of confrontation is just something she's doing to try and get through or something. She could have just tried a therapist, I suppose, might have been better. But
her boss comes along, Nelson, and he's played by Hopkins. Good old Hopkins here, having another role. Haven't seen him for a while. Hoskins, sorry, not Hopkins. What am I saying? Hopkins.
So if Bob Hopkins wants to get in touch about the movie, we'll talk to him as well.
These are very English names, and we can't even get them right.
Andy and Hopkins will come along, and they'll go, "We weren't in this film. What are you talking about?"
Bob Hoskins. I mean, I have not seen him in a movie for a while. Have you?
No. He's, I still can't actually think. I know I've seen him in several movies, but
he's been in a truckload.
I've got to click. Who
Framed
Roger Rabbit?
I was just
That's the one.
Yeah.
Where he's the bum detective, as it were.
Yeah.
He was in Super Mario Brothers.
Anyway, she very clever. He asked her about what happened to the partner, and that's what also is cool about this eyeball is that she kind of can print out a little disc version of it, and she hands it over to him. So no need to tell him what happened. She just can hand it over to him. At the same time, a group of armed police officers discover several people in a London flat infected with the Reaper virus. They were doing a routine kind of, into the squalors, and
drug sweep or something,
and they came across all infected people. So straight away, London kind of goes into a bit of a panic. We cut to the Prime Minister and his, dodgy sidekick. They're talking about, well, if we lock off the canals, I didn't quite get it. They don't give us a huge graphic of it, but we can cut off the sewage system, then effectively we can save everyone sort of outside of that. And good old Hoskins, Nelson sort of speaks up as the head of police, sort of saying, well, you're going to kill, you're basically allowing 4 million people to die, and they're like, well, yeah, well, everyone else would be better again. And it makes a lot of sense, because it's what they did to the Scottish people, so it's kind of like, well, the plan hasn't changed. No. Just keep locking people off in there.
It's the East End,
Yeah.
They haven't had any good plays come out in ages. Just cut them off, do it.
So it's not looking very good. The Prime Minister then, Hatcher, kind of takes Hoskins into a secret room or his office or whatever, and he says to him, well, we have these images. This whole time we've been taking images of Scotland, and, it's showing us nothing as to be expected. And then a couple of years ago, we noticed people.
Yes, there are people walking around.
There's people walking around Glasgow. And
you could tell because of the bagpipes and kilts.
They're just little dots on the pictures, but they could tell that they were people. So they're like, well, if these people survived, they may have the cure.
Yes, because there was a Dr. Kane who was working. He was the top research scientist on the Reaper virus, and he got caught north of the wall.
He did.
So if there are people walking around, they go, well, maybe he found some way of protecting people or cure.
Or maybe he found a cure after we shut them off.
Precious few cures to viruses.
Yes.
Usually we have treatments which allow people to outlive the virus until our immune system kills it, or just keeps the virus in sort of a remission state. So, for example, AIDS used to be very deadly. It would progress to... Sorry, HIV used to be very deadly. It would progress to AIDS. Yeah. And then people would die of whatever came along and infected them, basically, because you lose your immune system. But there's been antiretroviral agents which haven't cured anyone, but they've meant that people who got AIDS 20 years ago... HIV 20 years ago, I'll get this around the right way. HIV is the virus.
Yeah.
Have not developed AIDS.
Yeah.
Because they just take these drugs. And the drugs used to be very expensive. Now they're more affordable. So it used to be that HIV was a death sentence, but now it's kind of a manageable disease.
Yeah.
Not great, but you can get by. And the Reaper, and so we don't really have cures for viruses.
No, but it's very good movie talk, like cure.
Yes, cure always...
Sounds good. But I'll just put another but on this, little asterisk, before we go any further. That's what this doctor said about reviewing these pandemic movies. And it's just made me think about this, is that he says, and COVID's a good proof of it, he goes, whenever there's a pandemic across the globe, it's never just one lab in one country that works on it.
Yeah.
It's global. It's a global effort. There's all these different labs all over the world sharing information with each other, trying to come up with different ways of treating it. And actually, now that I read that article since watching this movie, and it's funny to think that they're like, oh, this Dr. Kane was the best researcher ever. He might have figured out. What else have you been doing? What about all these other scientists?
For 30 years, you've just gone, it's contained.
Yeah, it's contained, and no one's worked on a cure across the whole world. Because can't you imagine? Because again, the motivation there is also money. Like if someone comes up with a vaccine, governments all over the world will pay for it, right?
Oh yeah, you'd want a vaccine
like
on the Reaper virus. You'd want a vaccine.
This would be something you'd spend billions on.
Yeah, particularly because even when you're just talking about your police and your soldiers.
Yeah.
If your soldiers, and because they're on the top of the list, the Russians are already gone injecting their soldiers with experimental vaccines. Because if there's some sort of conflict or problem, you don't want your soldiers out of action.
No.
Because and your police, because they're the ones who will be able to restore order, maintain order, defend borders, enforce quarantines
and stuff,
and so forth. So, yes, you would think that even if you thought the Reaper virus was done,
okay, you've quarantined it, but then you've still got to work on it.
Yeah, you would definitely come up with a way of stopping it.
So Nelson, they want to send in a team. Nelson chooses his top police officer, and of course that's Sinclair. So she's going to lead a mission into or across the Scottish border. Now, personally, she's got a bit of a mission, which is maybe that her mother has survived, so she wants to go ahead with that.
Because she's still got that little envelope which Mum gave to the soldiers that here, so she remembers.
Yes.
So she's got the envelope and she's looking at this. And and I'm pretty sure that's why her boss, let's call him Hopkins. No, sorry, Bobby. I should have called
him Hopkins.
I'm pretty sure that's why he chose her. She's really good, yes.
Yeah.
But also,
she has a personal reason to...
He doesn't have to convince her too hard to go there.
Yeah.
Whereas you can imagine trying to convince someone else, you're going into Scotland to save people. Or I could just not, because it's deadly in there.
That's right.
Yeah, so...
So Sinclair's team, there's a couple of soldiers, and there's these two doctors that what we're just talking about. Like, we tried everything. We tried everything, but the damn thing we just can't come up with a cure. Sorry.
No.
I tried everything.
We're not the top researcher on this topic.
No. Dr. Kane was the top one.
And Dr. Kane didn't use the internet or share.
Well, he didn't. He was shut off from the internet. I mean, isn't that another interesting point, actually? I'm not trying to talk this down. You could lock them behind the border, but maybe give them internet access so you can still talk to them.
Yeah, you'd
Would
think
there be any harm in that?
Cell phones would still operate.
Yeah.
Certainly near the wall, even if all the cell towers in Scotland stopped working for some reason.
Because no one was operating.
But if you walked,
no power.
Within, onto a hill facing the wall, you'd be able to get bars.
But anyway.
But this was filmed in, and this is one of those things at the time, 2008.
People still on
We
flip
certainly
phones?
had plenty of internet.
Yeah.
But 2008, it wasn't the beast it is today.
No.
There weren't literally trillion-dollar companies based on the internet. So that's an interesting little time warp there.
So their mission is to head to Glasgow, where Dr. Kane's last known location is. They head along the broken road. They come across a whole bunch of cows.
They've got a time clock as well. 48 hours.
48 hours.
Or that's the end of it.
Yep. Because London will with being infected now, everyone will be dead in London. So that's the time clock. So they're heading to Dr. Kane's last known location in Glasgow. It's a hospital. And they find, it's an eerie, the roads are all worn down, there's grass growing up, there's cows loose everywhere. As they get closer to the town, there's, broken signs, there's no lighting. And then they come into Glasgow and it's pretty cool, isn't it? How it's like overgrown.
It doesn't look like anything's changed in the 30 years. I don't know. Any of you Glaswegians listening, I'm sorry.
I love Edinburgh. That was Surrey that said that.
I've never been there.
I love Edinburgh, and I think I never went to Glasgow, but I'd imagine it's similar in that. It's probably really beautiful.
That's fighting words. You'll get an axe thrown at you for that. That's like saying, I've been to New Zealand.
Fremantle and Perth are the same.
I've been to New Zealand. It must be pretty similar to Australia.
Yeah. So they go into the hospital. I'm just trying to think where we were. And Sinclair and team are ambushed by this group of
punks.
Yep. And Sergeant Norton and Dr. Sterling manage to escape, while the team then suffers really heavy casualties. They have this whole sort of, as you said earlier, this girl rocks up. He goes outside to kind of save her, but he pulls her in, disinfects her or seals her up, but then she's got a knife, so she stabs him. As they're all chasing around the hospital, Sinclair, the only way to get him out, kind of shoots the elevator and uses that foam. There's a big chase scene between when they get in what are those vans called?
The APC.
APCs, they get in them.
They made them specifically for the movie.
Yeah,
they wanted to buy old ones, like refit ex-military stuff. They found it was actually cheaper to make their own.
Cheaper to make their own, why not? Well, because you don't actually need all the military gear.
No,
they look like it.
It's just it was armor plated and had bulletproof glass, but having said that, it had none of the fancy. Like, it didn't have any NBC ceiling and computers and radar.
But it doesn't need any of that, does it? It's a movie, sorry, it's a movie.
But I just found it interesting. It was cheaper to make their own than it was to buy used ones.
Yeah, it is. You could.
Having said that, they then went and bought 3 Bentleys to smash up.
So it had a pretty good budget, this, eh? That's had a decent budget. So anyway, they have this great chase scene. All these punks they sort of never, they're mowing them down with their machine guns and stuff, but it just seems like a never-ending horde.
Yeah.
I was kind of thinking, geez, did anyone actually die?
They did, but they're just being picked up by the farm. It's called farming.
Farming.
We're going out for a harvest now. Chase the guys with guns.
Yes.
And then, the farmers come along afterwards and harvest the bodies. Either the people they catch with the guns or the people the guns.
Okay, fair enough. They are captured. We introduce then when Sinclair kind of comes to this mental leader called Soul. He's interrogating her about Kane and where's is it about what Kane is up to?
Yeah, where to get to? Where's he up to?
What's he up to? What's his plans of attack? And he's pretty brutal. He's brutal against her, but he's also barking mad, basically. Like, there doesn't seem to be a lot of logic to how he's...
No, he's fairly sort of out of control.
Yeah. He's kind of into her a bit, then he, punches her, and then he's kind of desperate for information, and he kind of, licks her, and he's just... It's a mad interrogation. It's not made by anyone with any sort of... Okay, well, first I'll just start with, a little tickle, and then if you give me an answer, that's fine. Then I'll step it up to, a punch, toes, or I might then break a toe or a
nipple
finger.
Cripple.
Nipple cripple. Okay, then we're going to get to the bit where I'll put you in some water and we'll bring in some electricity and just give you a little charge, and and then we'll tie you up and I'll start beating you.
I think maybe you've thought a little bit too much about this process.
Of course I've thought about it. That's what I get up to on the weekend.
Typical Saturday night at the Regan household.
That's just what we do in the bedroom to begin with. Sorry, let alone the interrogation.
That's where people are like.
That's right. That's the kind of things that people like here. I want to get Sinclair interested here. So anyway, that's what Soul was doing. He then leaves her because he believes Kane's. Oh no, he realizes that he can use her to get across the border.
Yes,
right. That's right. So that was the plot point. So he realizes that she could be his way. No one's ever been able to get past the big machine guns at the border crossing.
Yeah, because they just
harvest. They'll have to
people.
let you across. And so with that, he leaves happy. He doesn't want her hurt. And he goes out and does this amazing... This scene, I was just kind of grinning. You talk about teenage Surrey smiling with the head chopping. This whole sequence of Soul coming out and all the cannibals celebrating... the irony in the song choice, the traditional kind of weird Scottish dance routine that happened as well with the men and the kilts, and then the bringing out the soldier to barbecue.
Yeah, they roast him, don't they?
They roast him.
Yes.
And this whole thing, I've watched Mad Max a few times, and we probably have to do Mad Max as a classic, I think, one day. But it's the same in Mad Max. There's this intense insanity to the villains in Mad Max, the original Mad Max I'm talking about, that is just so bizarre. And it's so kind of beautiful on screen in a movie to have these characters that are it's quite often in a bad guy. It's Hans wants to blow up the building to make a statement to get the money and, all that kind, it's always like the motive like that. But you get characters in these anicanic, can't talk tonight. In these post-apocalyptic world, or use a totally different world, like that, they're just crazy, aren't they? It's just cray. The motivation is not the same as we expect from the bad person.
He's just trying to hold it together.
Yeah.
And he has his song and dance, which is great. They barbecue the guy, and it's very gruesome where we see them carving into the flesh, which is quite, that is a distinct choice that Neil has made to try and turn people's stomach.
Yes.
It's like, okay, here's an opportunity. They could have just had off-screen death as fire brought up and then left to the imagination.
And even just chewing, just chewing something.
Someone later on having a bit of meat to eat.
Toothpick.
Yeah.
But no, they carve.
Well, that's a classic one, isn't it? Where the guy picks his teeth, he goes, had your friends over for dinner, type of thing. Like, you don't really see anything, but no, this was like they're brutally carving.
After he's burnt, they
slice
and dice.
He comes back, chucks down a lump of meat for. Who does Sol chuck down a lump of meat for Sinclair? I can't remember who chucks it down. I just remember the lump of meat landing in front of her.
No, it's one of the other two that she kills, isn't it? Yeah, it's that guy.
Because I think Sol can't have turned up there because she busts out and starts kicking ass. So, which is what she does.
Yep.
Surprisingly enough,
she tricks him.
Kicks, a bit of bottom. Ends up having a sword fight. Well, meets this girl locked up. He says, "Hey, save me, save me."
Callie,
And why should I trust you? I don't know why she talk like this. But
I don't know why. She's only Russian.
But why should I trust you? He says, I can, I can help you find Cain. And how would you know where Cain is? I should. He's my father.
Oh.
Dun, dun, dun. So then she gets interrupted.
Yeah, so then she helps her, and then she has this big fight with Viper, cuts the head off, throws the head, which is great.
Yeah, she chucks the sword at the guy, and it's a wonderful little fight.
It is.
And then there's cue the
chase sequence.
The chase sequence, yeah. They run off without a lot of chase, take her down into the underground, where a dude with a bow, which is kind of surprising because obviously all those punks just had like clubs and sword type things, and this dude he's wearing the rustic peasant stuff and he's got a bow, so it's very traditional British in that sense.
Yeah, he looked like a freedom fighter from the sort of 14th century or something, right?
Yeah, and they grab her along and she communicates with her buddies and says, "Hey, guys,
meet me at the train station."
Is that Miller and Cooper?
Norton and Sterling.
Yeah, meet me at the station. Yep. And it's a steam train.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
That's nice.
It makes sense because it can't be, it could have been a diesel, I suppose. Like, why not? But a steam train is good because you've got water and you've got coal in abundance. It's not a problem. And so here we have this tense chase scene where I was pretty certain that Sterling's going to die any moment. Like he's running. He's the one who trips over, and
there's a guy also on a motorbike
coming up behind him. Then Sinclair jumps off the train and whacks him.
Screaming horde of soul, and he's
they're all coming mad over there. The motorcyclist sort of bumps in the thing and cracks his neck off, and it's a madcap sort of race. They're running up the platform, and I was expecting Sterling's going to die. He's got to do it, right? But no. Sinclair jumps off, knocks it, and manages to get him out, and then Sinclair just gets in. And I love it. Sterling jumps in and bumps into Callie, and they
have a moment, don't they? They just have a typical moment.
This is like one of the biggest movie cliches in the universe. They bump into each other, fall to the ground, and they one on top of the other, looking.
Oh, hello.
I had a chuckle.
Yeah,
because I do not doubt, having watched the rest of this movie up to this point, Neil fully well knew that was that was the movie shortcut to saying they're now interested in each other.
Yeah. Oh, it is. It's totally is.
Like, as if having some lump land on you or crashing into some woman, you go, "Oh shit, sorry, man."
Well, I know that's exactly right.
As opposed to someone going, "Oh,
how many times in your life...
never noticed how beautiful you were."
Yeah, how many times in your life do you bump into someone, right? Like, I'm just talking total random stranger. The shops, on a train, even at a music concert, right? Like, how many times do you bump into someone and you are then like, oh, sorry, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
I don't think, like, and you've seen other people bump into each other, so it's not just like me. I don't have any romance to me, but it's like, you literally, like, how many people bump into each other and then it's like instant romance?
Yeah, they look at each other and go,
like, because of the bump, you know, like, wouldn't
Hello.
you have just like done the same thing? Even like if I was at the shops pulling the dog food into the shopping cart and you're pulling the cat and you're like, oh, hi, how you doing? Like, wouldn't that be the exact same attraction? Then bang. Oh,
Yeah.
well, we've banged once. We might as well just take our clothes off and
let's
bang
keep
again.
going. But there you go. So there you go. So suddenly we now
Anyway.
know that there's a thing between the two of them. It has
It's
to
like
be.
saying The Cure, right? There's a drama point there. There's a speeding up of the act.
Yeah, it's just let's get stuck in
Let's
it.
get stuck in it. Those two, Kelly and Sterling, are up for. Is it Sterling or Norton? Sterling.
Sterling is,
Yeah. And Soul and his... See, again, these kind of mad people, right? What does he do, right? Because he's lost the battle. He turns and like just bam.
He does a scream and then like
punches
that dude out.
Punches, like, one of his men.
Apparently,
he does that.
on the second take of that, the guy actually got his nose broken.
It doesn't surprise me. I know Soul loved doing this role. Like, you just get into this role, wouldn't you?
Soul. The actor who plays Soul.
The actor who plays Soul.
Yeah, no, actually, they lost a few cameramen whilst they were trying to get into Glasgow because those punks are hard to deal with.
They are.
They like killing anyone. Sound designer died. They kept the makeup artists.
Yeah, they love
Apparently, they need more of those. Get that coal around Soul's eyes doesn't do itself.
And on the train, Callie reveals that not only is she Kane's daughter, but Soul is actually her brother.
Yes.
So there's a big dun dun dun.
So
And
this
he
whole family's
basically
a little bit-
left because he was unhappy with Kane's rule. And so he took off and made his own little punk world.
Punk World. Yes, he didn't like Robin Hood Land.
Which you can go to Punk World for $19.95 adult tickets. They're on special at the moment due to the pandemic.
Yes.
Please bring lunch.
Yeah.
Otherwise, your lunch.
Yeah.
Or please bring a sacrifice for lunch.
You just have to be faster than the next slowest guy.
Meanwhile, they cut back to London, and this is where we get this, like, we left London and people were a bit infected, right? And we come back to London, and maybe this is what you said at the start, that if things were this extremity, you would just build a freaking wall and lock people out. I think maybe you'd nuke them, right? Like cockroaches, because when we cut back to London now, it's not like there's a threat of people breaking into Parliament House. People are like, and they're all pussy and like vomiting on the street. And I'm like, wouldn't you go home? Like, wouldn't you go back to your bedroom?
I know.
Like,
the whole please stay at home thing. You go, yes, I'm locking the doors.
I'm locking every single door. I'm shutting the windows.
I'm not going out there.
Gaffer tape in the windows, I think. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to even look out my window, Even if I was the sick one, like, I'd be like, I want to, like, I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah,
I don't want to die on the street.
I would definitely be carrying my own hand sanitizer, not relying on the stuff at the shops.
That's right. And so there's this sort of whole outbreak. There's also, of course, emotional outbursts related to the Reaper virus. People seem to be... I always love this because it always reminds me of The Simpsons. This is why The Simpsons get it so right, don't they? It's like mob violence. Like, it's like as soon as there's any fear in a big mob, there's like, push,
Smash the windows,
set the
torch
thing
the
on fire.
cars.
Which, England's used to. They have a soccer match. They can't even handle the results of a soccer match, can they? They
No,
kick
go
over
for it.
cars and set them on fire and stuff.
And that's if your team wins.
As if your team wins, let alone what happens when you lose. So there's this sort of whole thing going on. And there's a nice moment there that they're shutting the big doors to the Parliament House or Government House or whatever. And as the soldier does that, there's actually an infected man behind him.
Yeah, managed to get in.
I thought that was really cool because it was just done really nicely that, it's like lock the door, security person, scan the hand or whatever it was. Yeah. And then there's just this crazy eye infected man behind him,
With an axe.
With an axe. And he kills him and has to chop off his hand, which is nice and gruesome. And to get up to the next level. Eyeball scan, to get into the lift. And there's also a nice bit of tension there that when Hoskins or Nelson hops off the elevator, that this other guy is also hopping off the other elevator at the same time. And when he's running to kind of infect the Prime Minister, they're shutting the door. He actually shoots him. and
He explodes in blood.
Explodes in blood, and unfortunately, the Prime Minister is looking at this sort of violent scene unfold, and the doors don't shut in time, and so he gets a spray right across his face.
And he licks it.
Licks it.
Whoops. And then he's a little bit upset by this, understandably. And he wanders into his office where he has...
He's a bit forcefully removed, I think, into his office by the others.
Well, yeah, he was asked... he went voluntarily because I think he's like, oh...
Well, yeah.
Okay, he pulls out... some reason he's got a revolver in there.
They always do.
It's
Prime
just
like this
for just such an occasion. I don't know why he has like a full set of bullets. He should just have one. And he bites down the end of that gun.
I think that theory is what we all would like our politicians to have. Is just that full gun in their
It's
office.
unfortunate they don't do it quickly enough or often enough.
No, they don't, do they?
Yeah, like...
So anyway, we cut back to after leaving the train, Sinclair's group. This is, as you said, it suddenly now changes into Robin Hood, and we're out.
Well, they go through the portal, the magic
we
portal,
go through
which
the
is
magic portal, the old military tunnel.
Some archive. It says I can't remember what it was called, but something of the archive, and they go through. They pick up torches, like burning, flaming things. Although the two soldiers have actually got flashlights.
Yeah.
But they still go through, and you can't see much. There's this box, and they go, "Oh, is the lost ark down here?" You know, and they go through, and then they pop out from the post-apocalyptic landscape into verdant green valley with a river running down it, and there's trees everywhere. Suddenly, we're in Robin Hood land. Yeah, and it was a nice usage of that tunnel. Yeah. It was basically the magic portal between the two worlds. Yeah. And you could feel the difference because on one side it was sort of like a rock quarry look. Yeah. And on the other side it was all greenery and water and trees. And sure enough, they start walking along there and they hear the hoofbeats, which sort of sound a bit like a heartbeat. Yeah. Brr, brr. And what's that? Oh, that's Telomere or Telamon, the king's executioner. Yes. Which I thought, well, that sounds a bit odd. I mean, you've got guns. And then they run for it, and they're like... And Sinclair says, nope, give me the gun. And Norton says, yeah, okay. And they stand there. I also thought, yeah, well... When you just blind why wouldn't you just stand there and wait? And sure enough, some night, a little bit apocalyptic night. Yeah. I mean, it's a bit scrappy looking, but it's recognisably a knight with a lance on a big horse. Rides up and holds her at spear point. Yeah. The other guys ran for it, and the archer dude gets shot. Yeah. They're just, stabbed or shot with an arrow or something. Yeah, I think it's an arrow. Yeah. I think that was just a convenient way of sort of showing that these guys are a bit serious and also to remove any possible love interest for Callie. Yeah. Because she bumped into Sinclair, so, you know, you can't take him out. You can't have, like, Robin Hood getting in the way of these things. No. So they get captured, short story, and they get taken to this castle and we get this nice outside establishing shot of the castle and there's like a knight with a lance there. Yeah. It's all... And the colour tones of everything have gone from that blues and greys and concretes and dark and smoke to being these sort of browns and greens and stony sort of lichen coloured. And everyone's they're in period costume. Yep. Which is great.
They're bought into it like the punks.
The great thing is that the Sheriff Nottingham, let's call him, steps out and clearly behind him it says gift shop.
It does.
Pointing, and I love that detail because it would have been easy to have just erase
to get rid of that.
Pull it off the wall while they're different. But they're still pointing out that this is not a real... No. Yeah, this is a leftover castle. This used to be a tourist attraction. And it still says gift shop, and you know, I love that little detail there. They left it there, and that would have been that was an intentional choice. Definitely. During the editing, they could have easily just removed it in post. Yep. Or just covered it up during because you got to do your framing. You got to go, okay, we're going to do a shot from here. He's going to be standing over there. Look through the camera. What are we going to see? A gift shop.
Yeah, leave it. That's fun.
Yes, nice. May have even put it there on purpose. But anyway, it comes out the gift shop and takes in Sinclair. The other guys get taken away and put in prison, and they're not treated too well. And Sinclair is brought in and speaks with
Marcus Kane,
McDowell, and who explains, basically he's enjoying being king. Yeah. And he's, and I can see this is a less brutal society than Glasgow. I think maybe you could have brought some modern concepts in to allow slightly better equality and welfare and so on and so forth. But
Well, he was a bit down that he got locked away. The British locked him out.
Yes.
That's where he was most pissed off, that his family got left behind. I think maybe there was some sort of deal that they would have been taken, and he was surprised that he was left behind by the British, and it just sent him a little bit into this sadistic kind of point of view of, no, stuff here.
Yeah.
And he does talk to her about survival of the fittest, and we are the fittest, so screw you, you guys can have the virus, and whoever comes out on...
Well, see, this is, as they say, herd immunity.
Yep.
Get enough people have it, and they've either had it and survived, or they're just not susceptible to it.
That's right.
And that's the same case with the COVID-19, is some people
will
don't seem to be susceptible to it. They carry it, but it doesn't do anything.
Yep.
They pass it on, but it doesn't do anything to them. And some people, of course, most people, really, come out the other end. But in the Reaper virus case, I would suggest not many people came out the other end. But you would have had still some. Yeah. Like there is no virus that's 100% fatal.
Well, even if you take the numbers, there's a lot of punks that got mowed down in that. But I mean, you're talking about a population of millions of people, and yet maybe it's just a few hundred.
For sure.
Even 1,000, man, it's a pretty low
and after 30 years,
probably
initially you would have had a lot of people dying from, if you're diabetic, for example, where you get your insulin from, unless you know how to milk a sheep for insulin, you're kind of out of luck. And, you get yourself a bit of pneumonia, unless you know how to grow some penicillin, you're out of luck.
Yep.
And there's
accidents as well.
A lot of that sort of thing.
You're trying to farm corn and you stab yourself in the foot and you bleed to death.
Tetanus.
Yeah.
Particularly because, if you were born in that 30 years, you'd be growing up without vaccines.
Yeah, vaccines.
So tetanus, measles.
All that, could take you out.
Whatever else, mumps. Mumps.
Just the common flu.
Meningitis. Flu and so forth. So anyway,
Kane sentences Sinclair and her group to death.
Yeah. But it's trial by combat, because you got to give the people what they want to see.
You got to give that Tellerman character a real shot at fighting Sinclair, because he's about 5 times her size.
Yeah, and I think this is also the case where old McDowell, he's been telling everyone there's nothing on the outside there.
That's right. Yeah.
And so he's got to show that, there are these people, but look at them, they're just weak and useless. We are much better off. And so they have the fight, and out pops, and it's this wonderful arena with the rocky ground, and it's really authentic looking.
Yeah, it is.
I don't doubt it's actually a real castle with a bit of a
real castle,
bit there. And out wanders Telamon. We never get to see him outside of his armor.
Yep.
His armor is really cool and scrappy, but still kind of effective looking.
Yep.
And I would suspect that this is a fellow who has never really learnt how to fight.
Yeah.
And let's face it, when you're wearing that much armor and you're that big and you got the weapons, you probably don't have to fight that well.
No.
Because
it's sheer force, isn't it?
I mean, in all these movies, they do like to show, there's people fighting in armor and they go slice, slice, and the person dies. Yeah. Despite wearing plate mail armor. But again, get yourself on a YouTube and look at some people doing armor tests and so forth. And you're wearing that armor. It takes a fair bit to take you out. Like it really is tank-like. Even the things like that hammer she had, I've seen, have real trouble piercing that stuff. Yeah. But she does. She fights him and kicks him a bit because she's a well-trained soldier. Yeah. He's very big, though, so he's not going down easily. No. That's not a problem because she climbs up and pulls some dude off the wall, grabs his hammer, dodges out of the way as Telamon swings his Morning Star down and it crushes the guy's head. Yeah. And again, we get a little touch of gore there. We do. His head collapses like a melon. It's always satisfying. And then she smacks away at his legs, knocks him down. And this is a somewhat American touch, I think, because he's down, and rather than just finishing the job, which I would have done personally, he's like, freaking, yes, I'm not... What's his honor thing? Like, you in a real battle, this guy will kill you at the first chance he gets. He's been trying to kill you. Yeah. Yeah, so you've knocked him down. You want to make sure he's staying down. Yes. But in Hollywood movie language, the hero can't kill an enemy that's down.
Yeah, you can't murder someone.
You can't kill someone when they're down.
No.
Okay, I'll accept that as a bit of a conceit. But because it's not that sort of movie where there's purely ruthless. And so, of course, she turns around and starts looking around for a way out.
Yeah.
And he rises and goes to get out, and then she spins around and clocks him in the head, and blood comes out, and he falls down. So, her honour was spared because he was coming at her.
Yep.
And then it's just like, okay, well, shoot her then.
Yeah.
Because, great, you've beat my soldier, but, I've got this dude with an arrow who's going to shoot you.
Yeah.
Luckily, at that moment, out pops
Norton,
because they've just gone and killed their way out of some people. Because again, as I said, Norton, and he's a trained,
we keep
highly
seeing
trained specialist soldier. He's
him
not,
in particular. He keeps doing things that are quite advanced military. I think.
He's not some numpty who's just self-taught over 30 years of being in a medieval castle.
He knows how to escape.
He actually knows how to do his thing.
Use
so he does.
weapons.
And then he gets a gun, and so
he uses that effectively.
Shoots at the other, and then there's like explosions. I assume that's his grenades because they run and found the grenades, and they effect an escape, and they run and run
and run.
Get back to the
magic tunnel. Yep,
which is the archives. They get themselves in there, and she immediately goes and picks up the manifest.
Yes,
and they
start
crack
scanning
open,
what they've got in there.
Yeah, they crack open the Bentley. There's a thing with a Bentley there, which I'm going, what was this archive? Like, that's a bit weird. And
yeah, but like when she, remember she's looking at it, and I mean, it was good when they walked through it the first time. She sort of took note, and it seemed like Kelly and the other guy, they were like, oh, it must have been some sort of military bunker. We just use it to quickly get through the mountain. And it's like, oh, you guys have never thought about what's actually in here?
No,
you've never really opened a box?
Well, maybe they did because
but,
she went and found the cell phones.
Yeah.
So she opened a box and it was a crate packed full of cell phones.
And I suppose that's the thing. If you opened that box, you'd be like, oh, this is useless.
Well, also, Callie's not 30 years old.
No.
So maybe she opened a box and it was a box of AAA batteries.
Yeah.
AA batteries, and you're like,
what do we do with this?
What the hell is a AA battery?
Yes, that's true.
Or it could be something else.
And she does do that with the car, right? She's like, what is this?
Yeah.
Like she doesn't know what a car is.
Yeah, she's like, that looks really cool, but I've been living in a castle with a guy playing king. So,
So they get out the Bentley, they fuel her up, and at the same time, Kane's medieval knights all arrive. And this is where there's a little bit of a sad scene that Norton gets
poor Norton.
They keep getting him in the back.
But, you can only
he did it so that they could survive.
You can only have so many people reach the end.
Yes.
It's sort of a rule of action movies. Get to the chopper.
Get to the chopper.
You can only have the hero.
Yeah.
And maybe one... And in this case, two others escaped because they were a couple.
Yeah.
And so they jump in the car and get to the blast doors which lead out.
Yep.
Norton does his hot wiring. He smashes some sparks. It's always very exciting. He could have just pressed a button and had it go, but
had to spark.
Pull the wire. Sparks come out. Bad guys come out. He goes running, cops an arrow in his leg. He starts hobbling on, cops it in his shoulder, and he's like trying a bit harder.
Get to the Bentley.
Get to the Bentley. Norton,
get to the Bentley. We're ready to go.
You son of a bitch. So Sinclair, it's like they do that whole.
That's what Sinclair was saying.
This is what heroes do. Is they look at each other and there's that moment, that recognition.
Come on.
They're like, oh, okay, it's not going to happen.
I said, yeah. You go ahead.
Yeah, there's like
I might as well take
an unspoken. Initially, she's like, "Yeah, get moving." He takes that second or third arrow and he's down on his knees, and they look at each other, and she goes, "Okay."
Yeah, it's better for me to go.
And Norton says, "I was about to say, wait a moment.
This can be rectified in surgery.
Shoot them. Why didn't you look for the guns first? And when they came in, just like mow them down in a car. Okay, whatever."
Yeah.
And jump in the Bentley, and here we get this lovely James Bond chase along the cliff faces and the ex-police car.
Yeah, that was great. Wasn't it great that they... See, this is a little tongue-in-cheek.
Yes.
They come around a corner, fanging it, and there's a speed check.
Yes.
It says, slow down.
Slow.
And then it's like... Woo, 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 woo. Yes. And this little cop car comes chasing. And at first, the way it's been shot, is it's kind of a nice wide shot, and it just looks like a cop car.
Yeah.
So you're thinking, hang on a minute, where are we? Like, have they like crossed the border?
Across the time.
Where is this? Like, is this and then then it cuts to a close up, and it's like
These crazy
two
dudes.
punks again, right? And the cop car is kind of a mashed together cop car. It's extremely Mad Max, that cop car. That is like I don't know if that was a Toronto or not, but it's like an extreme kind of like nod to Mad Max, that particular car, I've got to say. Yeah, it's exactly the vintage.
Yeah, like an 80s kind of looking thing that's been... It's got the fat wheel arches on the back.
Even the way it's like those all blue lights. It's not the modern day
Mind
blue
you,
light.
personally, I was still looking at going, that Bentley's like a W12 6-litre engine. It's got about 600 horsepower, 4-wheel drive.
I don't know how many chase sequences I see in shows sometimes where it is like this I'm not a supercar guy, but I do know like it's just such a disparity between the two cars, and yet they're close. It never gets me. And surely Sinclair can drive a car, right?
They get 0 to 100 under 5 seconds. It'll do a top speed of over 300 kilometers per hour. This
surely
Bentley.
it would disappear down the road.
It's got traction control. It's got electronic stability. It's an amazing piece of kit.
Yeah.
And this beat up old bomb is, and you're thinking, I mean, it would kind of be a poor movie if the cop car came woo after her, and she's going, oh, okay, floored it, hit the freeway.
Yeah. And
traveling 300 kilometers per hour, and the cop car's struggling 120, and it's like, okay, it's just been left in the dust.
But that's pretty much what actually does happen anyway. After a few moments of chasing, the cop car goes off the edge, right?
Yeah, well, she shoots out its tyres. And this is that James Bond thing. So spins around, comes to a skidding halt, bang, bang, bang. It goes, and these two... And again, that's just a nod to that sort of era, that action. Off the cliff.
There's two people in the car.
Just screaming. And then she... Yeah. What's Sinclair sort of says, oh, well, I guess we got out of that one or something. Yeah. And she says, oh, I wouldn't be so sure, because in the mirror, you can see where she's looking.
Yeah.
There's this horde of, crap boxes, pure Mad Maxism. I mean, this
is the Mad Max.
You cannot. The Gimp is crucified to the front of a car, just like that dude in Mad Max.
Yeah.
And then the car that Sol's in is sort of this, I don't know what they've covered it over, like bandages. It looks like it's a bandaged classic car, but it's got like, instead of a windshield, it's got bars of some sort with spikes on it, and it's
just such a mismatch of cars.
It's incredible, and that comes out. And so they
Viper, the girl, the woman, his partner, is in the partner seat.
Appears to be sitting next to him.
Yeah, appears to be sitting there. He's like he's sticky taped her head back on or something like.
And then they go this. So then we get into this car chase where there's bumping of fenders and there's back and forward a bit, and
people
then
jumping onto cars.
Finally, the features face Sol jumps through the window, and there's like this crazy. He's just screaming, grabbing, and throttling, and there's like a gun, and there's
it's coming in, and
poor old Viper cops an arrow to the head at some point, and then someone else gets shot accidentally through the car window, and the whole thing goes on. And
there is this again, like Mad Max, where like one of the bad guys kills one of the other bad guys, because they're so intent, aren't they?
Yeah,
on,
they're
getting the
shooting through the car.
Like, they just kind of like they'll kill each other to get to. It's very rat-like, I suppose. Like it's like I'll eat you to get to this one. Like there's no stopping the. There's no, again, what I was saying earlier. There's no logical kind of fight to it. Like literally, you and I are on the same side, but I'll rip your face off to get to what I'm trying to get to.
And then, of course, the Gimp car is there, and finally Sinclair gets rid of that fellow and looks at the Gimp and says, "So you love pain?" And the Gimp goes, "Ah!" And he rams off the side. And he goes slamming into the just full face into the burning truck, or whatever that's exploded. And then they jump through.
Some guy flings along the ground.
As the bus pulls out and it shoots spinning discs of death, which fly across, and only Sol is left on the car.
Yeah,
and he's sitting on all fours on top of the car, just screaming.
As it heads towards this bus.
Jumps through the bus, as it's just a classic action sequence. Bash through the bus. I love that, of course, because again, how did the car jump?
Yeah,
but it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
It's an action film. That's what happens.
Yeah,
everyone knows it when the action hero's car hits at another vehicle, it jumps through it.
The classic is Speed. In Speed, that bus jumps a hole. I don't want to ruin it for anyone if you've never seen Speed, but it jumps over that hole in the freeway.
Yeah, it does a jump.
When there's no actual jump, it just jumps.
Yes.
Cars
One of the
do.
trucks, one of the vans chasing hit. So someone fell off and rolled on the ground, and a van hit it and nosedived.
Yeah.
And exploded.
Yeah.
I laughed at that as well. It's just that's a classic action.
Yeah. They just instantly explode.
It's brilliant. As I said, it's
but
all a little bit
great movies.
It's all a little bit tongue in cheek, but it's done seriously. That's dramatic music's playing. It's very tense.
Well, it's that song when two tribes go to
war. It's a sort of a heavier version of that going on, yeah. And so finally Solar's wiped out by this bus.
Well, his head is decapitated and towards the camera, right?
He rolls along and
scream in the old... That's a great shot.
The Bentley goes roaring up and slides to a halt with the helicopter, and out pops Gastigator or whatever his name is.
Michael Canaris. Yeah, the politician. You got me my prize.
Have you got the package?
Have you got my package? And you're welcome to come on board. Let's get out of this shithole.
I'm going to let a few more go before this one finishes.
Yeah, and that's the thing. He unleashes a bit of a spray about letting London...
Got to let the undesirables go.
Yeah.
I wish I could talk like him because he was very good at talking. He wasn't a good person. He was a terrible person.
Yeah.
But he had a great voice.
He did have a great voice. So they take off. She lets them go. And then Sinclair gets back in the Bentley and bangs it off down the
this was
freeway.
a nice little scene here. Again, teenage boy.
Yeah.
She gets out of the car and we have a gratuitous butt shot as she walks up. She's wearing But you realise it wasn't gratuitous because she puts her hands behind her back as she goes and twitches her wristwatch. The recording
the
thing.
recording button, yeah.
And so it's like, you weren't just showing us a butt shot.
No.
Which is common in these action. You go to Underworld, and
she's got the tight leather.
Resident Evil and so forth.
Yeah.
There are gratuitous butt shots as they just walk about the place.
It's in the contract.
It's one of the things.
We need
these
9 shots throughout the
movies
film.
must have a decapitation and gratuitous butt shot. That's just like you've got to have those two.
So she does. She records the whole conversation. Anyway, she takes off. You're a bit like, where's she going? And this is where we get Nelson, the head Hoskins, rocks up in a helicopter as well, kind of finds her in this old home, and it's her mum's home.
Yeah, she's having a bit of a cry.
And she's having a bit of a moment.
Well, which is, I think this is one of those comparisons with the opening scene where she just completed this, very dramatic, violent shootout, and she's kind of looking a bit empty.
Yeah.
She's not really displaying anything in emotion. She's not all, like I said, she's not whooping and yahooing. She's not crying. She's just kind of there.
Yeah.
And this one here, she's finished her little bit and pieces and let this guy wander off. And what I liked, of course, is that guy just let her go as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, it would have been so easy to go, I can't have you getting away with this. I'm going to kill you. You're going to eat my haggis for breakfast. Now I'm starting to get fat bastard.
He actually says to her, it's a shame because I need a top, military person like you.
Yeah, but he just lets her go.
Yeah, he just lets her go, yeah.
And so she goes back to her house, and now in comparison, she's sitting there, same scene, she's sitting there after the mission, similar seated position.
Yeah.
She's holding, instead of holding Mum's letter, she's now holding Mum's photo. And Hoskins' character comes up and says, and hands her the letter, and she's like, yeah, well, I don't need that. But she's having a bit of a sook.
Understandable. I don't think sook's the right word. She's having a bit of a moment.
She's finally having...
She's grieving her mother,
a bit of emotion there. Like, she's... Which... Yeah, you kind of think she must be so messed up to be able to have no emotion after the massive kill spree and all that adrenaline.
That's right.
But she gets home, she has a bit of a cry. So, but that's the comparison. That's her growth. She's gone from lost in the world a bit through this adventure, which hasn't given her what she thought she wanted, but it's given her what she needed, which was that closure to see what her mother looked like and to experience her family home and know that she used to have a life here.
Yeah, and that, I suppose, you're exactly right. Closure, her mother has passed on some point during the virus, and she can move on now. Like she can move. It's a door closed.
What we didn't realize is that for 28 years, she was a successful hairdresser, makeup artist, and choreographer. So those little madcap dances that he'd do out there with the kilt men, that was her. That was her
all along. Yeah.
But unfortunately, she stubbed her toe, got a deadly infection, and died just before she turned up. Yeah, and she does the same thing. She pulls out the recording disc,
of
hands
the
it to him,
scheme, yeah.
and which is the same thing she does with the start. The whole thing is mirrored beautifully.
Yeah.
And then she goes back into Glasgow, and we have that scene of all the pumps,
the pumped up kids,
the pumped up kids with their wild locks and crazy eye makeup,
and then their Nikes.
Yeah, they're all arrayed in a group photo opportunity. I guess they got the tall people to the back, the shorter people at the front, that sort of thing.
Well, they're shocked that she's just
and they're like, what they're kind of
ready.
They're not sure what's happening here because they don't have a leader to tell them to like go crazy, and she chucks her head at them. And what does she say at the end?
Well, I think she says, "Are you ready to eat?
Are you ready to eat? If you're hungry, try a piece of your friend."
Yeah, and she throws in. It's that same line. Yeah, she throws Sol's head towards them.
Yeah, and
there's a moment where they're a bit confused, and then they're like, "Ah, yes, I am hungry. I'll eat him."
Yay, we have a new leader.
Leader. The leader is good. The leader is
good. Yeah. So I'm not really sure what her intention is.
If you're hungry, try a piece of your friend.
Well, what's her intention of having this bunch? Because she doesn't seem like she never expressed an intention to make peace or be peaceful or even invade London or do anything.
But that's, I suppose, the thing is that now she's closed her with her mother, so she can. It's a new life for her. She's a born. She's a military lady. She's ruthless. She can train them. Maybe she'll train them into a proper group. And that's a sequel, isn't it?
Who knows?
She will storm London or
fight the Robin Hoods.
Yeah, fight them and take over. Just become the Queen of Scotland.
Aye, Sinclair.
The Stone of Destiny. Take back that Stone of Destiny that they have in Scotland. Oh. All right. So, and then we have the end. Roll credits. Great little film, this one. And so, where are we putting this on your ladder, Surrey? I think for me, I am putting it at number 19. So for me, that means it comes in before Equals at number 20 and after Gantz, 0.0. Number 19 for me. I felt, I've got 36 on this other ladder, which I'm pretty sure is all of them. You got 36?
Oh my God, I've got 35.
Oh, you might be missing one. Anyway, it's sort of right on spank in the middle. I mean, Darkest Dawn is above it, Replicas is above it, after it is Equals, Revolt, The Thing sort of thing. So it's in there. You can check out my ladder on my website and also on the Space Brains page. And as Surrey has noted on an early episode, we probably need to get together and refine this. So we might do a little special coming up soon. As we approach 50 episodes.
50 episodes, holy moly.
Because tonight is 46, right?
It better be.
47. That's 47, sorry.
Or I'm going to have to hunt through and edit that out and change.
No, it's 47 tonight. So, so anyway, and the reason for that is, look, it's a great film. I liked the gore crossing over into the science fiction world. I liked the end of the world apocalypse and how they did it. I like that this is a hypothetical kind of point of view. When I sort of see it in comparing it to something like Gantz, obviously it's a very different story, but I sort of feel like that's where it fits in roughly.
I put this down at number 28, sort of in Paradox, Occupation, Darkest Dawn, Wandering Earth territory.
Yep.
I felt that it had that, like I said, in terms of feeling, it sort of had a bit of a Darkest Dawn, Occupation, Wandering Earth sort of feel to it in my experience of this thing.
Yeah.
So it's below it. Then we have Shanghai Fortress and Equals and so forth. Above it, we've got Spectral is also very similar because it borrowed heavily from Aliens, and that's a bit above it. I found that. The Spectral one, the technology and the action, I liked a little bit more, mainly because the hero was like an engineer. It's like, so if only Sinclair was actually a computer programmer, then
that would tick your box.
It
So
would
your
have got-
teenage Surrey
it would have
super
gotten in
happy.
there. Oh, I'd be like, yeah, that would just be another person I'll never get to talk to. It's great. There were a lot of people I didn't get to talk to as a teenage boy.
What a hot engineer that saves the world. Okay, all right.
That's what we need. We need more of them.
Yes, we do.
There's only a few of them that I know of. Yeah.
So, does this hot engineer have any science to talk about from tonight's film? And here I'm not talking about Sinclair, I'm talking about you, sorry.
Yeah. Although it might be a little bit arrogant of me to call myself an engineer.
Yeah.
That whole software engineer
IT,
thing, I've never really qualified as
an
engineer.
software.
But, yes, I had a look at a couple of bits and pieces. I did look up the Bentley because I was curious. And I found out, of course, Bentley doesn't do promotional spots.
Yep. So quite often the big cars, like you take iRobot with Will Smith, Audi sponsored that, and they made a prototype car for iRobot. Demolition Man, I think that was Audi as well. They did the same thing. They kind of came up with...
James Bond is renowned for being sponsored by Aston Martin,
Yep.
Jaguar, BMW. BMW, that was a controversial one.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, that's not a British car make.
Yes. And they do that, and they tend to provide them in the same in the James Bond. They provide them with, it's like prototypes. So it's a little bit of a different. It's a unique, one of a kind.
Yeah, and they had the Lotus as well. But in this, so when I saw the Bentley on screen, I thought, oh, that's odd. Bentley's done a promo spot.
Yeah.
Haven't seen one of those. It's sort of a strange choice for them. I would have thought they'd choose more of a gentleman's movie, because the Bentley's sort of the gentleman driver's car. It's for people who like driving, but you're a bit of a gentleman or gentle lady, as the case may be. So that was a bit of an odd choice. But no, and I was looking at this other things, but it was an eye that got me, because I realised
I love the eye.
I got no clue about artificial eyes. And so here's how little I knew, because I thought, okay, she pops that eye out and pops it back in. I've seen this in a couple of movies, and next week we're going to talk about another movie with someone popping eyeballs in and out.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's got to be unhygienic. You can't just pop your eyeball out, roll it around the ground, and chuck it back in there and have no worries.
Yeah.
So I thought, how do glass eyes work?
Yeah.
And that's where I went with this, because it's really interesting. And also then artificial vision with the eyes.
Yes.
Because that's, a lot of science fiction have people with enhanced vision of some sort. Riddick has it in Pitch Black. The Doomsday Sinclair, she's got it. There's, I guess even like the Terminator's walking around with fancy pants eyeballs. He's got fancy pants.
Eyeball. Trademark.
Trademark.
Oh,
Yeah, so let's see. Now, I found very interesting. Here's an article about... Here's an article on archaeology. This is in the CHN Press. There's an article that was published in 2006, I think it was. So basically, there's an artificial eyeball discovered. It was belonging to a 4,800-year-old woman, probably a lady, as you'll hear from the description here. So there's in Iran, let me see, where is it? It's actually 57 kilometers from the city of Zabul, which is in the southeast of Iran. And it's called the Burnt City location, and it's a very important prehistoric site. It's an old city, obviously. But here we have they found in the excavation the skeletal remains of they refer to her as a sturdy woman. I'm not entirely sure that's complimentary. She was a sturdy woman, a good slow center of gravity, anyway, sturdy woman between 25 and 30 years of age at the time of her death. They found this eyeball. She had a fake eye, and the material seemed to be made out of tar and fat, but it had a coating of gold plate, so gold leaf over it. And they found she's a bit of mummified remains. On the inside of her eyelid, there was like a little bit of an abscess, which indicates that she wore this for a long time. This wasn't something that was just sort of placed with her body. She actually wore it. And they actually found some eye tissue on the eye itself. This eye had, drawn in little eye capillaries. We're using gold wire, and gold, of course, is important because it's soft and easy to mold, but it's also very non-reactive, so it won't corrode or interact with your blood and skin. And it had like a little fanciful design of an iris and so forth in there. Yeah, so it's quite interesting to find that nearly 5,000 years ago, an artificial eye actually in the eye socket would fit behind the eyelid.
Yep.
So that was fascinating.
Yeah.
Fast forward to that issue was in 2012. So fast forward then to modern day eyeballs, and I was always of the impression, because it's portrayed that way in movies, that a glass eye was literally like a ping pong ball shaped thing, which it just looks like an eye, right?
Yeah.
And you pop it in and out of your eye socket.
Yeah.
But of course, when you think about that, you go, well, hold on, what's holding it in the eye socket? And that would probably cause damage. So it's not true. So when this woman, Sinclair, not the ancient woman, goodness knows what happened to her eye. So Sinclair suffered some eye damage, but it wasn't, it didn't burn her whole eye out. She didn't. And this is quite common then to replace it with a prosthesis, because her musculature there and nerve system and blood vessels are still intact.
Yep.
Just her eye's not going to work.
Yep.
So they take it out to enucleation, it's called,
right,
which is where they basically take the eyeball out just carefully. They leave some of the casing in there so the muscles and blood vessels are all intact.
Yep.
And then they pop in a ball, which is like, in the past it has been glass.
Yep.
So back in the 16th through to the 18th century, Venice was all about glass eyes. If you want a glass eye and you're in like the 1600s or 1700s, you're talking about Venice. They kept the secret of glass eyeball making and glass blowing in general very secret. But that escaped, and Germany started doing it. World War II came, and the United States suddenly had a need to produce fake eyes for all the soldiers coming home with lost eyeballs.
Yep.
So they started doing it, and glass is okay because it's smooth and it's hard, but it's not biocompatible. So your body doesn't do anything with it. It's just a foreign object.
Yep.
Nowadays we've got much better materials, which are slightly porous. So they put this ball in, which is a little bit porous, plastic basically.
Yep.
But blood vessels, and they can attach your muscles to this little ball.
Yep.
And that's featureless. So that's just a ball which gets stuff grown over it.
Yep.
The artificial eye part itself is actually like a little shell. If you could imagine cutting the top off your egg. You get your hard-boiled egg and you crack it across with your knife to put on with your toast. It's just that shell, like it's like a
little
cup,
soldiers in,
like a partial cup with the eyeball hand-painted, the iris hand-painted on there to match your other eyeball, and then it slots in. Let me think, like a shin guard in your socks, but it pops up under your eye, and there's like a great big contact lens type of thing.
Yeah.
It sits over top of this ball, and that's the bit that you take in and out. Mm-hmm. So that's more like I said, like an eggshell type of thing.
Yeah.
And you wash that and you clean it, get it polished, regular maintenance, and pop it back in.
Yep.
This YouTube video of a kid doing it.
Yeah.
It's freaky because I was curious. Going, well, how does this work? And he pulls it out, washes his hands, he pulls it out, washes it, dries it, pops it back in, and it's all quite weird looking. But it's certainly not a ball you can take out, unfortunately, like Sinclair's. So that's no good.
No.
But it works, and you can get little pegs. So that normally just sits over top of this ball, but to get slightly better movement so that your eyes match when they roll around the place, they can actually sort of have like a little Lego. Lego has like one bit has like a little peg, the other bit has a little socket. So you can have something along those lines. You can sort of peg it in there, and that will let it move around a bit more.
Lock it in better.
Lock it in a bit better. So when we're talking about artificial vision, you can't pull that in and out of your eye at all because it's grafted to your nerve. Because in order to send signals to your brain, they've got the eye nerve Oh, sorry. Actually, there's two types of these things, and I was really excited by the first type, which is called a implanted telescope. How about that? So if you've got just damage, say, what was it, like a glaucoma or a damage to your part of your lens or outer eye that can't focus light onto your retina properly, you can get like a little implant which goes inside your eyeball, and it's a little telescope which magnifies 2 to 2.7 times everything out, and just shines it back onto your retina that's undamaged, the undamaged parts.
Wow.
So you can gain some vision back from your eye. You can read with that, and you can see things with it. It's a bit dodgy around the edges because you don't have great, and it is sort of magnified, so it's a bit weird. You've got to like wear glasses and stuff, but you can get some vision back, which is pretty cool. Now then, the other one, which is more like what Sinclair had, is you've got no eyeball, but you've got an optic nerve that works. They'll wrap the optic nerve with some wires. Essentially, I think they've got to about 30 or 60 little sensory wires, which they'll wire into that, and there'll be like a little camera there. And some of the earlier ones, it was just a camera. It would just produce sparkles of light, which would allow you to differentiate between light and dark shades. So if you were in a dark room and there was a door open into a light room, you'd be able to find, if you covered your other eye, for example, you'd be able to find that door and you'd be able to head into it because it'd be a light patch against the dark and so on. They've got better ones, so that's like the Argus 2, which I think is the only, I know it was in 2000 and... I could turn around and look at my computer, but I have a feeling the Argus 2 was 2004 or something. The Argus 1 was in the 90s. And the more recent ones that they're looking at now have a coprocessor. So it takes in, a camera takes in an image, it processes it to get stronger contrast, and then takes a small section of that and then blasts your optic nerve with it. And so again, it's not much. People describe it as being like being able to see sparkling stars, and if you sweep your vision around the place, you can kind of pick up outlines and things. You can't read, there's no color. It's all so it's really primitive. Arguably not much better than being blind at all. Particularly if you've got one working eye. You might as well just get a glass eye and go, well. Much easier. If you're totally blind and you're struggling, then maybe it'll be helpful. But what they're looking at now and future is, of course, artificial intelligence with this. Because you've got this image processing, which produces electrical signals to stimulate an optic nerve, but they don't know how to stimulate that optic nerve to produce images. They can stimulate it, which produces, like I said, contrast between dark and light. And say, here's light bits, here's dark bits. But to produce anything, like the ultimate would be able to read. If you could read and write or recognize faces, then, hey, that would be the ultimate.
Of course.
So looking more of a coprocessor. So you have the eye is a bit of a camera. It would then send the imagery to some sort of a computer, which then uses an artificial intelligence learning algorithm. You can start training it to recognize things and fire the correct stuff, because everyone's going to have a slightly different thing. So the dream there would be that you'd have to have some sort of a training session. You plug yourself in and you look at defined shapes and letters and stuff, and you train this computer to be able to stimulate your brain well enough for you to recognize stuff. We're still a long way from that, because the interface between the eyeball and the brain is still it's very simple at the moment, and it's a very complicated connection, as you could well imagine. I don't think we quite understand how complicated these things are, but
the eyeball is pretty complicated.
But an AI would be perfect. That's the kind of problem that this neural network AI is good at solving. Is that one where you've got inputs and a known required output, but you don't know how to process the two together. you run it through your neural network a few million times, and it eventually finds a way and says, well, if I do this, it kind of works.
Yes.
Don't know why, but it kind of does.
Yeah.
So there we go. So it's quite good. And that actually reminded me of an earlier piece I read earlier this week. Actually, I wasn't going to talk about this, but I will anyway because it's exciting. One of the reasons we dream now, there's this theory, is that it's to preserve our visual cortex.
Right.
Because as we're going along, we spend so much time in darkness or with our eyes closed. There's competition for mental resources. We like to say we have parts of the brain responsible for different parts of thought, but they're not fixed. So if you are, like, for example, blind, your visual cortex is considerably smaller. You still have some visual processing because you can still imagine things.
Yep.
And your visual processing then gets converted and used for spatial awareness type of visualization, depending on whether you've ever seen before in your life or you've always been blind.
Yeah.
But the problem is that if you close your eyes every night for however long, say you spend 12 hours without being able to see properly, it's entirely probable that other processing will start overtaking your eyes. So to preserve that, you dream, which activates this visual cortex to just so your brain says, I'm still using this. Don't shift it. But anyway, that's artificial eyeballs, which fascinating and very long history. 5,000 years. I didn't realize it. So Pirates of the Caribbean, where the dude's got the wooden eye. Well, it wouldn't actually be a wooden eye, but yeah, back in the when were the Pirates of the Caribbean getting around? They were 1600s,
Something like that. Yeah.
1500s,
1500s.
somewhere in that region.
Yeah.
They would definitely have had glass eyes from Venice.
Yeah.
It was possible.
Interesting, eh?
Yeah. And what about you? Let's talk about some of the filmmaking stuff. We've mentioned a few things like the use of music and some of the shots.
Yeah, we have talked about a few of the things. I think with the overall cinematography, it was shot nice and close. There was lots of close-ups, extreme close-ups. I've felt they probably did that to create a little bit of claustrophobia. So it's kind of like nice and tight. We're not about... I mean, there's big wide shots and establishing shots, of course, but lots of it was really close, you know. So we were intentionally cutting people's heads off and chins off, and we're right in on people's faces. So that seemed to be a bit of a thing I noticed throughout the whole film. Music, you know about the music. This film, the music is just so important, hey? So when this performance, especially from Soul, his show, he walks out to he walks out to Dog Eat Dog by Adam and the Ants. It's very tribal. The crowd is going wild. He then starts dancing with those kind of strippers on stage to The Good Thing by the Fine Young Cannibals. So there's a good bit of irony and context kind of about what's about to happen here. And it's a nod, as you said, from the filmmaker. You know, it's like, this is an in-joke, you know, of what this is. I mean, whether Soul knew that or not, I'm not too sure, but it's definitely from the filmmaker. It's a nice little nod. The Men in Kilts is I looked this up, it's the Can, which is an older song, but it's based on an older song, but it's been created, who is a composer for film, Ariel Ratchard, and it's a traditional Scottish dance. And this song is actually quite a well-known dance since this film. A dance song, sorry. It's become kind of a bit of a dance song. But it's very Scottish, the fact that they've got that in there, isn't it? That it's like the Men in Kilts.
Yes.
You know, it'd be like if it was Irish, there'd be a bit of river dance somewhere in there, even though we're about to eat people. So it's kind of like that tribalness comes to it. Yeah, and so it's a mega mix, that scene. Hey, it's just such a standout scene.
Particularly because up to that point, it had been just sort of 80s cinema action background type of music.
The scenes, right? Like,
background music, and then there's
nothing that sort of stood out. And then all of a sudden
cut to pop, rock, dance.
And I mean, when he does do those things like Dog Eat Dog and The Good Thing and these kilts, it's all very staged theatrical performance, which is the point of the scene. You know, it's like, oh, we make this big scene and song and dance, don't we? And they all liked everything he did. Like when he dances with those strippers, he's not dancing with strippers as in he's having a lap dance. He's dancing with the strippers. It's all choreographed, lean over here, they lean over, he smacks their butt. But it's all sort of part of the performance, right? They lean in to kind of grab a piece of him and he shrugs them away. And then the men in kilts come out. Like it's all very crazy choreographed performance to just say, I'm the boss. Yeah. And then we mentioned it before, the fight, that big song of Two Tribes Go to War by Frankie Goes to Hollywood, which is literally, the song is about people going to war, going off the two sides of war. So that, the climax of it. And it's a deliberate song choice in that hectic, crazy car chase explosions that we went through before. So I just think that this film doesn't have an exhaustive soundtrack, because there you can just see that you can look it up. There's a whole YouTube mix of this film, of the songs. Not only the soundtrack is available, but the soundtrack is there's lots of stuff that's been created for the film, done very wisely, as you said, this 80s synth, disco house kind of music. But those particular songs are all kind of nods to what is actually happening in those scenes. It's a real deliberate choice. And probably the deepest one is That Good Thing by the Cannibals, because it's just like...
And that's what I do like in watching these... Enjoy watching our sci-fi is you start thinking about the directorial choices and the music and lighting and shots. They're intentional. They've done it for a purpose to work. Yeah, because you go, of course. But when you think about it and you're watching it and you look at it, you start to appreciate what the directors, the language they're trying to use. They're trying to talk to you. It's not purely. I think there are some movies which are kind of purely what's on the screen is what you're getting.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah,
but particularly in the action genre. But there's also plenty of other movies where there's a little bit of extra conversation going on, which is great.
Probably also we've talked a fair bit exhaustively about the magic tunnel. Yes. Another thing with that is the lighting, because when it's in the Souls dungeon Glasgow, it's all very night and grimy and dark and shadowy, is one way they do that. Whereas after that, when they do go out into the Robin Hood green fields, that's actually daytime.
Yes.
And so there's also, they've just deliberately played off the lighting of and I mean, even though it's a day and a night, it's very logical. You've got these two worlds that are apart from each other, and it's pretty much night in all of Soul's world and then daytime in the night world, which is quite interesting. So it's that difference that happening there.
I didn't think of it that way, because Soul is sun, but it's night in Sun's world, and nights as in Kniggets. But it's day in the night side.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So there you go. And probably the last thing, just a huge kudos, is that props and hair, because as we said, the film kind of goes through some genres and some nods to other films, and there's kind of segments of the film almost in a way, and all of those props and hair and makeup and costumes match all that. So when we're in London with the politicians, it's very modern day political world, hair, makeup, costumes, all very appropriate to that boring sort of aesthetic. You've got her in her drug dealer world where it's, military kind of outfits and all that kind of thing. When they go to the punks, they're the real homage to this 80s crazy Mad Max punk world. When we go to the Knights, it's all very well done for that. I mean, all of them could be separate films where people show you the special trades of those kind of world building, but in this film they do it throughout. So whoever worked on the props and the makeup and the costumes,
the costumes,
it's really intense, and they just seem to nail all of those worlds, I reckon. So I mean, wasn't it great that I just want to do a little nod, that guy that Soul leaves Sinclair and he says, okay, don't hurt her, look after her, and he walks out, and that guy's got that punk chain going from his nose to his ear. And it's great, right? It's really great. And then later, she rips it. You know, like, it's such a classic thing, isn't it, to have that and just go, I'm gonna rip
whenever
that
you
up.
do see someone with something like that, you kind of do want to tug.
Tug. She does.
So when you see someone with like
Tug it.
a big pointy beard, you want to give it a bit of a tug, yeah.
So well done to the whole crew and cast of Doomsday, because they've come up with something that's, I think, pretty damn special. It's got a little bit of tongue-in-cheek to it. It's got amazing, gory special effects, which I'd expect from Neil Marshall after you go and have a look. And look, just on a side note, I know we do science fiction here, but if you have not seen The Descent, have you seen The Descent?
I've seen The Descent.
Oh my goodness.
And
that
Dog
is a
Soldiers,
scary
yeah.
film. And Dog Soldiers is like terror and humour. The Descent is just pretty much terror.
Oh, look, I've got to say,
Like you
there
lose
is
some fingernails.
there is no spoon. That line killed me.
So let's talk about our next episode. We are going back in time a little bit because we got to see this at our special little invite to our science fiction.
We went to the
Universal.
Little Planet Science Fiction Festival.
We did
which
last
is
week.
run every Christmas, basically. If
kind of
the 20th.
post-Christmas.
This wonderful science fiction loving gentleman named Sean who puts on a couple of movies and he gives a little spiel about it.
Yep.
And everyone brings a bit of food and it's a lovely night to sit and watch a couple of movies and eat a bit of food and talk to some people.
Yeah, and have a good chat about science fiction with like-minded people. So we love, it's our second year that we've gotten to go to it. Hopefully we'll get an invite for the third. I don't think you embarrassed yourself.
Yes. So yeah, Sean, you here?
Anyway, the next two episodes, we're going to talk about the movies we watched that night. So the next episode, it is a science fiction film called The Brother from Another Planet.
Yeah, I was excited to watch this because it sounds like some of the movies I've seen in the 80s, which were like, sort of these blaxploitation type movies. What was this one? I was trying to remember this one. I was just about this black woman who gets hard done by a couple of men and then she goes on a revenge spree and kills everyone.
Yeah.
I can't that sort of thing. And so it's got that sort of title. So, but I definitely wouldn't have picked this for myself to watch normally. It's surprising and clever.
Yes.
And we'll talk about it next episode.
We will. It's exciting to get told what to watch in a way and then to watch it and go, wow.
Yeah, it's
So that will be our next episode. So stay tuned. Check us out on our socials. We're on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. And of course, you can find us online. Listen to the podcast. If you're listening, you know where to find us.
If you Google, look, I tested out because I was telling a co-worker about this.
Yeah.
Now when you type in Space Brains into Google, we are the first
ding, ding, ding. We're
first entry. And it actually has the little blurb, Space Brains is where we watch science fiction, talk about it.
Yeah.
Mark and Surrey doing and I'm like, okay, there we go. So
there we go.
We've been on Google long enough now. If you type Space Brains in there,
we're number one.
Cannot miss us.
Fantastic. So we'll catch you next time. See ya.
See ya.